Chapter 1801. At this very moment, inside the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department. The chief of the Metropolitan Police Department finally exhaled in relief after hearing that Yuhiko Ito had been admitted to the hospital and was no longer in critical condition. He took out a cigarette, tapped the pack to tighten the tobacco, and lit it with his lighter before taking a deep drag. After a moment, he let out a long sigh and said, "Oh, it seems this bizarre day is finally coming to an end." However, the person beside him quickly interrupted, "Director, we still haven't located the bank's family siblings." Fuming, the director snapped, "Can't you speed things up? The bank's siblings are still in a very dangerous situation." He continued angrily, "An unclear situation means we don't know whether they're alive or dead. At the very least, we can't confirm their deaths yet. My only request tonight is simple: don't tell me someone has died. As long as they're alive, I can wait until tomorrow." The aide nodded repeatedly and said, "Sir, you've been working non-stop. You should go home and get some rest." "Yes," the director replied, taking another deep breath. "I really want to go home and get a good night's sleep." Just as he was about to leave the building, someone suddenly rushed in, panting as he shouted, "Director! Director! Something's happened!" The chief's irritation instantly flared, and he roared, "What the hell happened now?" Still gasping for breath, the man replied, "It's about Matsumoto. There's been an incident at the Matsumoto household." The chief was stunned and said, "First Maki Takahashi, then Yuhiko Ito, and now Matsumoto? What the hell is going on? Is he alive?" To him, as long as a person was alive, injuries or disabilities didn't matter. His bottom line was simple: no deaths. The man's face turned pale as he replied, "Director, it's very serious. Something terrible has happened to the Matsumoto family. There were over 30 people in the household, and they're all dead." "What?" Hearing this, the chief of the Metropolitan Police Department flicked his cigarette away in despair, grabbed his hair violently, and shouted, "I'm losing my damn mind. What the hell is going on? Is this still the Tokyo I know? Why does this keep happening?" The messenger was equally shaken and said, "Tonight, the Matsumoto residence suddenly caught fire. After the firefighters put out the flames, they found everyone gathered in the living room, all in a horrifying condition, burned beyond recognition. It was confirmed to be arson." The scene was so brutal that many firefighters were hospitalized after vomiting at the sight. The chief felt his blood pressure surge as he muttered, I can't." Before he could finish his sentence, his vision went black, and he collapsed on the spot. Meanwhile, in the ancient city of Kyoto, Charlie and Nanako Ito strolled slowly through the snow, enjoying the calm and serenity of the night. As they walked, Nanako told Charlie that ever since coming to Kyoto to recover from her injuries, she had been confined to the mansion and had longed to go out and see the city. Hearing this, Charlie took her hand, and the two quietly climbed over the wall of the Ito family mansion. Hand in hand, they wandered through the picturesque streets of Kyoto. Chapter 1802. Nanako Ito had something weighing on her heart that she wanted to share with Charlie, but she couldn't find the right words. In the end, she chose to talk about her childhood and personal experiences instead. Although she was born into a wealthy family, Nanako Ito's childhood was not a happy one. Her mother passed away when she was very young, and her father, Yuhiko Ito, never remarried. His presence could never replace the emotional warmth left behind by her mother. Yuhiko was constantly busy with work and rarely had time for her. His stern personality and emotional restraint meant that Nanako grew up without the affection she desperately needed. Nanako's mother had been a beautiful and gentle woman who gave her a traditional upbringing. While she was still alive, she taught Nanako the tea ceremony, painting, embroidery, and poetry. Much of Nanako's elegance and temperament came from her mother. After her mother's death, Nanako discovered martial arts. Training allowed her to escape her sorrow temporarily. What began as a form of emotional refuge gradually became a passion she truly loved. After finishing her story, Nanako looked at Charlie and asked softly, "Charlie, can you tell me about your childhood?" Charlie smiled bitterly and said, "My childhood was divided into two extremes. Before the age of 8, my life was happy. My parents were loving, well off, and I had no worries at all. But then they died unexpectedly. I became an orphan and was sent to an orphanage. Ah! Nanako gasped, covering her mouth in shock. I'm sorry, Charlie. I didn't mean to bring up something so painful. Charlie smiled gently and replied, It's okay. You don't need to apologize. After a moment of silence, Nanako said thoughtfully, In comparison, my childhood was actually much happier than yours. Even though my father is strict and serious, he does love me deeply, just in his own way. Her expression turned serious as she continued, Charlie, I know there's some friction between you and my father. I heard Tanaka mention it before. I pretended not to notice so you wouldn't feel awkward, but I want you to know that my father isn't a bad person. If you get the chance, I hope you can put the past aside and become friends. Deep in her heart, Nanako actually wished that Charlie and her father could have a relationship even closer than friendship, something like that of a son-in-law and father-in-law. But knowing that Charlie was already married, she buried those thoughts deep inside and never voiced them. Charlie didn't think too much about it. He nodded and said, If the opportunity comes, I will. Nanako's face immediately lit up with joy. That's great. But Charlie, don't misunderstand me. I want you and my father to be friends, not because of the $4.5 billion. You should keep that money for yourself. Don't give it to him. Charlie laughed and said, Why are you speaking up for him? $4.5 billion is a huge amount. Blushing slightly, Nanako said softly, It doesn't matter. You saved my life and helped me recover. Just think of that money as a reward my father gave you. Charlie laughed heartily. If your dad hears that, he'll probably be furious. Nanako stuck out her tongue playfully and was about to respond when her phone suddenly vibrated. She was startled and said, It's so late. Who could be calling me? Did one of the servants find out I sneaked out? She quickly took out her phone, and her eyes widened in shock. Oh, it's my father. Chapter 1803. Nanako Ito was caught off guard when her father suddenly called her so late at night. Feeling slightly nervous, she turned to Charlie and said, Charlie, I need to take a call from my father. Charlie smiled and nodded encouragingly. Go ahead. Nanako quickly pressed the answer button and asked anxiously, Father, why are you calling me so late? On the other end, Yuhiko Ito's voice sounded unsteady as he replied, Nanako, I've been in an accident. I just wanted to check whether you're safe. Is everything alright in Kyoto? Nanako's heart skipped a beat. She asked urgently, Father, what happened to you? Are you injured? Yuhiko Ito explained, Tanaka and I were chased. I managed to escape, but I'm worried they might come after you as well, so I wanted to confirm that you're safe. At this moment, Yuhiko Ito was lying in the intensive care unit of a Tokyo hospital. The area was under heavy guard, protected by family ninjas, personal bodyguards, and officers from the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department. At first glance, he appeared relatively stable. However, the reality was grim. Both of his legs below the knees were gone, the stumps tightly wrapped in thick bandages. After falling from a viaduct, his brain and internal organs had miraculously avoided major damage, but the impact had completely destroyed his legs. His feet, ankles, and calf bones were shattered beyond repair, leaving a horrifying scene. The doctors had reached a grim conclusion: his legs could not be saved. With the bones crushed into fragments and the muscles severely torn, the risk of infection was extremely high. To save his life, immediate amputation was the only option. For most people, extensive tissue necrosis meant almost no chance of recovery. Without amputating the severely damaged limbs, infection would spread rapidly, leading to systemic failure and eventual death. When the doctors asked for Ito's decision, he did not hesitate at all. Calm, resolute, and fully aware of the stakes, he understood his condition clearly. To him, survival was everything. He knew that refusing amputation would mean certain death. Aside from his daughter, nothing mattered more to him than staying alive. Koichi Tanaka, who had suffered similar injuries, was also recovering after having both legs amputated below the knees. He was in the neighboring ward. Completely unaware of her father's true condition, Nanako continued anxiously, "Father, are you really okay? Are you badly hurt? Is there any danger?" Yuhiko Ito let out a quiet sigh before reassuring her, "Tanaka and I both injured our legs, but we're receiving treatment now. Thankfully, our lives are not in danger. You don't need to worry." He added, "Things are very unstable right now. You must be careful in Kyoto. I'll send a few ninjas to protect you." Without thinking, Nanako blurted out, "Father, I want to come back to Tokyo to see you." Chapter 1804. Yuhiko Ito immediately raised his voice. "Don't come. Tokyo is in complete chaos right now. In just a day or two, far too many people have died. Besides, you're still recovering, stay in Kyoto and rest properly." Nanako responded without hesitation, "Father, my injuries are completely healed. Please don't worry. I'll rush back to Tokyo as soon as possible to take care of you." However, Yuhiko Ito didn't believe her. He assumed she was simply saying that to comfort him. With a stern tone, he said, "Nanako, you must listen to me. Stay in Kyoto and don't go anywhere, especially not Tokyo." Before Nanako could reply, Yuhiko suddenly raised his voice angrily. "If I find out you secretly came to Tokyo, I'll consider you no longer my daughter." With that, he hung up the phone. Nanako Ito broke down in tears. She was overwhelmed with worry for her father. Although she believed he was not in immediate danger, her instincts told her he was hiding the truth about his injuries. Charlie, who had been standing nearby, asked softly, "Nanako, is something wrong with your father?" Nanako nodded through her tears and replied, "My father said he was being hunted and is now in the hospital." Her voice trembled as she continued, "Charlie, I'm really worried." Charlie tried to reassure her. "Your father shouldn't be in any life-threatening danger. Try not to overthink it." Nanako shook her head. "I'm afraid he's hiding something from me." She looked at Charlie anxiously and pleaded, "Charlie, I have to go back to Tokyo. Can you help me?" Charlie asked calmly, "How do you want me to help?" Nanako explained, "My father won't let me return. If I tell the servants, they'll definitely stop me, or even lock me up. Since we've already slipped out, I don't want to go back. I was hoping you could lend me some money so I can take the first train to Tokyo at dawn." Seeing how desperate she was, Charlie sighed and said, "It's only midnight. The first train won't depart until morning. I can drive you back instead, it'll take a little over 3 hours." "Really?" Nanako's eyes lit up instantly. "You'll really drive me to Tokyo?" Charlie smiled faintly. "I wouldn't lie to you." Nanako hesitated. "But, don't you still have work to do in Osaka? If you take me to Tokyo, won't it delay your plans?" "It's fine," Charlie said casually. "You don't need to worry about me. I have someone else handling things in Osaka. Right now, what matters is getting you back to Tokyo so you can see your father and stop worrying." Nanako grabbed Charlie's hands tightly. "Charlie, thank you so much." "There's no need to thank me," Charlie replied with a smile. "My car is parked nearby. Let's go now." "Okay." Nanako nodded eagerly, her eyes filled with gratitude and admiration. At that moment, Charlie looked like a hero sent from the heavens, arriving just in time to save her. Chapter 1805. In the quiet of the night, Charlie drove with Nanako Ito in the passenger seat as they sped toward Tokyo. During the drive, Isaac Cameron called Charlie to ask whether he had finished his work and when he planned to return to Osaka. Charlie told him that he wouldn't be back for the time being and would return the following day. Although Isaac sensed that something was off, he wasn't overly worried. He knew Charlie's capabilities well, no one in Japan posed any real threat to him. With that thought, Isaac felt reassured. Meanwhile, Nanako Ito sat anxiously beside Charlie. Even though Yuhiko Ito had assured her over the phone that his life was not in danger, her unease refused to fade. After more than 3 hours on the road, Charlie parked in front of Tokyo University-affiliated hospital, the most prestigious medical institution in Japan and the pinnacle of the nation's healthcare system. As soon as the car stopped, Nanako quickly opened the door to get out. She then paused, turned to Charlie, and asked, "Charlie, will you come inside with me?" Charlie hesitated slightly and replied, "Your father probably doesn't want to see me, right?" Nanako looked at him earnestly and said, "Charlie, you saved my life. No matter what misunderstandings or grudges exist, I believe my father will overlook them." After a brief moment of consideration, Charlie nodded. "All right. I'll go with you." His reasoning was simple. Yuhiko Ito was Nanako's father, and if there were any serious complications with his condition, Charlie might be able to help. When they arrived at the intensive care unit floor, they were greeted by a crowded scene. From the elevator entrance to the lounge and down the corridor, the area was packed with people. Most of them were members of the Ito family, while a smaller number were special operations personnel dispatched by the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department. As the elevator doors opened, everyone turned to look. Their eyes immediately fell on Nanako Ito, and the unfamiliar man standing beside her. Surprise was evident on their faces. At that moment, a middle-aged woman hurried forward and exclaimed, "Nanako? What are you doing here?" She was Emi Ito, Yuhiko Ito's younger sister and Nanako's aunt. Nanako immediately bowed and asked anxiously, "Auntie, how is my father?" A trace of sorrow flashed across Emi Ito's face as she sighed. "Nanako, his vital signs are stable. The doctor said he's no longer in danger, but..." "But what?" Nanako interrupted, her voice trembling. Emi Ito sighed heavily again and said solemnly, "Your father's leg injuries were extremely severe. To save his life, the doctors had no choice but to amputate both legs below the knees. For the rest of his life, he may need to rely on a wheelchair or prosthetic limbs." "What?" Nanako's eyes instantly filled with tears. The news hit her like a crushing blow. She knew her father's personality well. He had always been strong, proud, and unyielding. Being confined to a wheelchair for the rest of his life would be devastating to someone like him. This reminded her of her father's mentor, Kazuki Yamamoto. Once a legendary martial artist, he had been crippled after underestimating Charlie's strength and was now bedridden for life, a tragic and humiliating end. Charlie couldn't help but frown. Yuhiko Ito's fate was a cruel mix of fortune and misfortune. He was unlucky to have lost his legs, yet lucky to have survived. Otherwise, he and Nanako would have been separated by death forever. Chapter 1806. Calling Yuhiko Ito lucky might sound strange, but from Charlie's perspective, all he really needed was time. As long as the leg was still attached, Charlie's rejuvenation pill could have healed it completely. However, once a limb is amputated, even the rejuvenation pill becomes useless. Despite its miraculous effects, the rejuvenation pill cannot regenerate a severed limb. Moreover, Yuhiko Ito had only been injured earlier that night. Delaying the amputation for several hours would not have drastically reduced his chances of recovery. It takes time for crushed tissue to rot and become infected, and doctors can suppress inflammation with medication. A few hours could have made a significant difference. If Yuhiko Ito had paused to think it through, he might have delayed the surgery and brought Nanako to see him first. Instead, he chose the most extreme option, immediate amputation. Charlie guessed that the hospital must have judged the damage as completely beyond repair and proceeded without hesitation. It seemed that Yuhiko Ito's luck had truly run out at that moment. Beside Charlie, Nanako Ito sobbed quietly as she asked, "Auntie, how is my father now? Is he very angry or depressed?" Emi Ito gently held Nanako's hand and said with a soft smile, "Your father is surprisingly calm. He told me that being alive is the greatest blessing, even if he has to live as a disabled person from now on. He's accepted it." She sighed lightly and continued, "What your father fears most isn't disability or even death. What he fears is not being able to accompany you through life. This time, he feels relieved, and incredibly happy. This is a father's love." Unable to hold back anymore, Nanako threw herself into Emi Ito's arms and burst into uncontrollable sobs. Emi Ito patted her back gently, then suddenly froze and exclaimed, "Nanako, wait. How are you standing? The doctor said you would need a wheelchair from now on." Nanako turned to Charlie and explained, "Auntie, it's all thanks to Charlie. He healed me." "Charlie?" Emi Ito exclaimed in shock. "You mean Charlie Wade, the one who owes our Ito family $4.5 billion? Nanako felt slightly embarrassed and quickly said, "Auntie, please don't focus on the money. Charlie didn't just heal me, he saved my life." "Saved your life?" Emi Ito gasped. "Nanako, were you in danger?" Nanako nodded and said, "Earlier tonight, Shinichi Takahashi sent 6 tingling ninjas to Kyoto to assassinate me. If it weren't for Charlie, I would be dead." Emi Ito's eyes widened in fury and disbelief. "That bastard Takahashi! I can't believe he would go that far, he wouldn't even spare you." She then turned to Charlie and said solemnly, "Mr. Wade, I may not fully understand the conflicts between you and my brother, but on behalf of my brother and the entire Ito family, thank you for saving Nanako." Without hesitation, she bowed deeply, holding the bow for several seconds. Charlie waved it off calmly. "You're too polite. Nanako is my friend. Helping her is only natural." At that moment, a doctor hurried over and said to Emi Ito, "The patient has regained consciousness and wants to see his family. Ms. Ito, please follow me." Emi Ito immediately turned to Nanako and said, "Let's go see your father." Nanako nodded excitedly, then turned to Charlie and asked, "Charlie, will you come with us?" Charlie smiled faintly and replied, "Nanako, I think it's better if I don't go in. I don't want Mr. Ito to get emotional and affect his recovery when he sees me." Chapter 1807. Charlie had made the trip mainly for Nanako Ito's sake. He felt that if anything went wrong, he might be able to help. However, now that Yuhiko Ito had already undergone amputation and was no longer in critical condition, Charlie realized that his presence was no longer necessary. Moreover, he preferred to avoid unnecessary awkwardness by not meeting Yuhiko Ito face to face. Without insisting further, Nanako Ito said gently, "Charlie, please wait here for a moment. I'll go in to see my father." Charlie nodded and replied, "All right. Take your time." Nanako Ito gave a small nod in return and entered the ward together with her aunt, Emi Ito. Inside the ward, Yuhiko Ito had just regained consciousness. After losing both legs, he was hooked up to an analgesic pump to suppress the pain. Still, his worry about Nanako's safety in Kyoto kept his mind restless. Moments earlier, he had dreamed that something terrible had happened to Nanako in Kyoto. The nightmare startled him awake, and he immediately instructed his sister, Emi Ito, to send someone to bring Nanako back to Tokyo as soon as possible. To his astonishment, when the ward door opened, it was not only Emi Ito who walked in, but his beloved daughter, Nanako Ito, as well. "Nanako?" Yuhiko Ito exclaimed in disbelief. "Why are you here?" Seeing her father's pale, bloodless face, the thick layers of gauze wrapped around his legs, and the horrifying absence of his lower limbs, Nanako's emotions completely collapsed. "Oda-san!" She rushed to his bedside, grabbed his hand tightly, and burst into bitter sobs. Only then did Yuhiko Ito fully come to his senses. Seeing his daughter standing safely in front of him filled him with overwhelming relief and joy. "Nanako," he said softly, his voice trembling. "I never imagined I'd see you again so soon. Just being able to see you alive like this makes everything worth it." Through her tears, Nanako choked out, "Oda-san, you've suffered so much." Yuhiko Ito smiled faintly and shook his head. No, Nanako. Deep down, I know that surviving is the greatest blessing. I'm already very satisfied." Suddenly remembering something, his expression changed. "Nanako, your legs, how are you able to walk?" With a trembling voice, Nanako explained, "Oda-san, earlier tonight, I was almost killed by a tingling ninja." "What?" Yuhiko Ito gasped in shock. "The tingling ninjas tried to assassinate you?" "Yes," Nanako nodded firmly. "The Tingling family sent 6 ninjas to Kyoto to take my life." "6 ninjas?" Yuhiko Ito's face darkened with fear. "But there were no ninjas protecting you in Kyoto. How did you survive?" Nanako answered immediately, "Charlie Wade saved me." "Charlie Wade?" Yuhiko Ito's eyes widened. You mean that Chinese guy? Yes. Nanako said quickly. Charlie Wade from China. He defeated all 6 tingling ninjas and healed my injuries with a miraculous medicine. I'm completely recovered now, better than ever. Is that really true? Yuhiko Ito asked incredulously. Nanako, you're not lying to your Oda-san, are you? Emi Ito smiled and interjected, Brother, didn't you see her run into the ward just now? Chapter 1808. Oh! That's right! Yuhiko Ito exclaimed excitedly, his face lighting up. That's wonderful. Truly wonderful. I've dreamed for so many years of Nanako being able to heal and stand again. This means more to me than my own life. I can't believe it actually happened. Then he turned to Nanako and asked, So you came back to Tokyo, did Charlie bring you here? Nanako answered honestly, Yes, Oda-san. Charlie drove me all the way from Kyoto. She then added, By the way, Oda-san, the bodies of the 6 tingling ninjas are still in the storage room in my courtyard. I'll need you to instruct the housekeeper to take care of it. Alright, Yuhiko Ito sighed softly. I've been holding resentment toward Charlie these past few days, but I never imagined he would save my precious daughter and heal her injuries. Compared to Nanako's suffering, I've truly been a villain pretending to be righteous. He then asked urgently, Nanako, where is Mr. Wade? He's outside, Nanako replied. Yuhiko Ito tried to straighten himself using his arms for support and said earnestly, Please invite Mr. Wade in. I want to thank him in person. Nanako hesitated briefly and said, Oda-san, Charlie said he was worried that seeing you might upset you. How could that be? Yuhiko Ito said firmly. My conflict with him was only about the $4.5 billion. But he saved your life. To me, your life is priceless, not even $4.5 billion, or even $45 billion could compare. Mr. Wade is my great benefactor. I must thank him face to face. After thinking for a few seconds, Nanako nodded. Alright, Oda-san. I'll go ask him. If he agrees, I'll bring him in. Yuhiko Ito replied without hesitation, Good. Go now. Nanako stepped out of the ward and walked over to Charlie. Seeing her return so quickly, Charlie asked in surprise, Why are you back already? Nanako hesitated slightly and said, Charlie, my father, he wants to see you. Charlie smiled awkwardly. He just had an amputation. Even though he's not in danger, he must be very weak. Is it really appropriate for him to see me right now? Nanako waved her hands quickly. That's not the issue. My father wants to thank you personally, for saving my life and healing my injuries. Charlie was taken aback. Your father actually said that? Yes, Nanako said seriously, nodding. I swear it's true. Charlie smiled warmly. If that's the case, then I'll go meet Mr. Ito. With that, Charlie followed Nanako back into the ward. Inside, Yuhiko Ito, supported by Emi Ito, sat upright and clasped his hands toward Charlie. His voice was filled with sincerity. Mr. Wade, thank you for saving my daughter's life and healing her injuries. This kindness will never be forgotten by the Ito family. Charlie was momentarily stunned by Yuhiko Ito's unexpected humility. He quickly smiled and replied, Mr. Ito, you're too polite. Nanako is my friend. I would do the same for her anytime. Chapter 1809. Yuhiko Ito let out a sigh and said in an apologetic tone, Mr. Wade, I hope you can forgive the many offenses that occurred in the past. Charlie responded graciously with a faint smile. Mr. Ito, you are too polite. I've already moved past those misunderstandings. There's no need to bring them up again. The implication behind Charlie's words was obvious. He had no intention of mentioning the $4.5 billion again. It wasn't that he was short on money, nor was he eager to take it without justification. It wasn't that he wanted to drain Yuhiko Ito's wealth. Rather, even if he were to relinquish that money, it wouldn't be something he could simply dismiss casually. Ultimately, when the time came, the money would have to be handled by Nanako Ito and handed over to her. However, that would only happen once Nanako Ito was prepared to inherit the Ito family fortune. Yuhiko Ito was a wise man and immediately understood Charlie's unspoken meaning. $4.5 billion was an astronomical sum, but since Charlie clearly did not want to part with it, Yuhiko had no reason, or right, to push the matter. After all, Charlie had saved his daughter's life and even restored her to full health. That alone was an immeasurable favor. Otherwise, even if Nanako had survived, she would have been doomed to live the rest of her life crippled, confined to a wheelchair and endless suffering. Understanding this, Yuhiko firmly decided never to mention the $4.5 billion again. Instead, he asked curiously, "Mr. Wade, how exactly did you end up saving little Nanako?" Charlie answered truthfully, "I had just taken over the production line at Kobayashi Pharmaceutical in Osaka. When I found out that Miss Nanako was in Kyoto, only about a 40-minute drive away, I planned to visit her. Unexpectedly, I ran into ninjas from the Tinglin family who were attacking her, so I dealt with them." Charlie added thoughtfully, "It was pure coincidence. If I had arrived even a bit later, I might not have made it in time." Yuhiko Ito nodded, his expression still shaken, and said sincerely, "Thank you, Mr. Wade." Then, his face darkened with anger as he continued, "Those Tinglin family ninjas are loyal to Maki Takahashi. I truly can't understand why he would go so far as to target me. Everyone is fighting for my cooperation with the Banks family. Even if there were old grudges between us, it should never have escalated to threatening my daughter's life." Charlie's brows furrowed. "What do you mean? Which Banks family are you talking about?" Yuhiko explained, "The Banks family from China. They're a powerful family planning to enter the shipping industry. They're interested in acquiring stakes in several Japanese ports and are seeking partnerships with local families. Both the Ito family and the Takahashi family are on their shortlist." He continued solemnly, "For either of our families, securing cooperation with the Banks family would mean overtaking the other and becoming Japan's leading family. That's why this partnership is so crucial. I never expected Maki Takahashi to resort to such vicious methods." At that moment, Charlie suddenly recalled the two Chinese individuals he had rescued in Kyoto from the IGA ninjas. Could they be members of the Banks family? The thought jolted him, and he immediately asked, "Mr. Ito, who did the Banks family send to negotiate with you?" Yuhiko replied, "They sent their eldest grandson and granddaughter, one named Fitz, the other Zara." Charlie frowned. "They're quite young, aren't they? The woman should be in her early 20s, and the man around 25. "Yes," Yuhiko confirmed. "Fitz is nearly 25, while Zara and Nanako are both about 22. He sighed heavily and added, "What's even more shocking is that the Banks siblings were mysteriously kidnapped after arriving in Japan. More than a dozen of their bodyguards were killed, causing massive chaos in Tokyo. Now both Maki Takahashi and I are being treated as prime suspects by the Tokyo Metropolitan Police." Hearing this, Charlie was almost completely certain, the siblings he had saved in Kyoto were indeed the eldest grandson and granddaughter of the Banks family. The realization made Charlie's expression turn extremely grim. The Banks family. Chapter 1810. Curse the Banks family. Back then, it was the Banks family who had taken the lead in rallying countless families in Eastcliff to form the so-called Anti-Wade Alliance, directly opposing Charlie's father. Although Charlie still couldn't confirm whether his parents' deaths were directly linked to the Banks family and that alliance, one thing was undeniable, the Banks family was deeply involved in it. And to make matters worse, he had personally saved the eldest grandson and granddaughter of his family's enemies. At that moment, overwhelming regret flooded Charlie's heart. The hatred born from his parents' tragic deaths was not something he could simply brush aside. Even if he had never planned to take revenge on the Banks family's younger generation, he never should have spared their lives. As these thoughts churned violently in his mind, Charlie felt like slapping himself 100 times. Seeing the turmoil on his face, Yuhiko Ito quickly asked, "Mr. Wade, do you have some kind of connection to the Banks family?" Charlie let out a long sigh and shook his head. "I don't know them personally. I just happened to save them while I was in Kyoto." "What?" Yuhiko Ito exclaimed. "The Banks siblings were taken to Kyoto? Was it the Tinglin ninjas who kidnapped them?" No, Charlie corrected him calmly. It was the IGA ninjas. After dealing with the Tingling ninjas, I noticed IGA ninjas lurking around the Ito residence. Worried they might harm Nanako, I followed them. That's when I discovered they had already kidnapped the Banks siblings and were planning to kill them, then dumped their bodies in the Ito mansion to frame your family. Yuhiko Ito was stunned. Who could come up with such a vicious plot? This is outright evil. They're trying to drag my Ito family into a death trap. Charlie said coldly, I found out they were being manipulated by someone named Matsumoto. Matsumoto? Yuhiko Ito, Emi Ito, and Nanako Ito all gasped in shock at the same time. At that moment, everything felt tangled and suffocating, and they were desperate to uncover the truth. Yuhiko Ito shook his head bitterly. When I jumped off the overpass, I thought Takahashi Makishiro was the mastermind. I never imagined that Ryota Matsumoto was the one pulling the strings. That bastard played both sides, provoking conflict between me and Takahashi Jinji while trying to pin the kidnapping and murder of the Banks siblings on me. Despicable. Absolutely despicable. At this moment, Emi Ito spoke up, brother, while you were recovering, I heard something from the Metropolitan Police Department. I didn't understand its importance at the time, but after hearing Mr. Wade, everything suddenly makes sense. Yuhiko Ito asked urgently, what did you hear? What clues? Emi Ito replied, Maki Takahashi's son was murdered last night. His convoy was ambushed in an underground passage. He was trapped inside his car, and the vehicle was set on fire. What? Yuhiko Ito and Nanako Ito exclaimed in shock. Emi Ito continued grimly, later that same night, Maki Takahashi himself was assassinated by a ninja inside his own home. Maki Takahashi is dead? Yuhiko Ito blurted out. Emi Ito nodded heavily. And there's something even more terrifying. Yuhiko Ito steadied himself and urged, say it. Matsumoto's entire family, more than 30 people, has been wiped out. Chapter 1811. The news of the complete annihilation of the Matsumoto family left Yuhiko Ito utterly stunned. In disbelief, he blurted out, this wiped out the entire Matsumoto family, more than 30 people. Isn't that outrageously arrogant? Who the hell would dare to do something like this? Emi Ito shook her head and replied, I don't know the specifics. The police are still investigating. At that moment, Charlie spoke coldly, is there even a need to investigate? It was obviously the Banks family. I rescued the Banks siblings just last night, and now the Matsumoto family has been slaughtered behind the scenes. Yuhiko Ito frowned and muttered, isn't the Banks family being excessively ruthless? Matsumoto Ryota only targeted their subordinates and a few younger members. If they wanted revenge, killing Matsumoto Ryota should have been enough. At most, they could have taken out his bodyguards. Why massacre so many people? Charlie's face darkened. That's exactly how the Banks family does things. His thoughts immediately drifted to his parents. Judging by the Banks family's brutal methods, their deaths were very likely connected to them. The realization filled Charlie with bitter resentment. How stupid he had been to save and let go of the Banks family's eldest grandson and granddaughter. If he hadn't intervened, those two would have already been rotting corpses by now. That alone would have severely crippled the Banks family's younger generation, and, more importantly, crushed their arrogance. Charlie wasn't being narrow-minded, he simply couldn't suppress the hatred born from his parents' deaths. Seeing Charlie's grim expression, Yuhiko Ito asked with concern, Mr. Wade, are you alright? Charlie forced a small laugh and shook his head. I'm fine. Just a little shocked. What else could he say? There was no way he could tell Yuhiko Ito about his parents' tragic deaths or his own bloody past. Yuhiko Ito nodded and fell silent for a moment before sighing heavily. I never expected things to escalate this far in just a few days. He then said gravely, it seems that this incident, though unintended, has placed the Ito family in the position of the biggest beneficiary. Chapter 1812. Emi Ito nodded in agreement. That's true. Initially, we were locked in fierce competition with the Takahashi family. I never imagined that Takahashi Maki, Takahashi Eiji, and even his son would all end up dead. The Takahashi family will suffer devastating losses from this. She continued. On top of that, Ryoto Matsumoto had been aggressively expanding and trying to catch up. Now that the entire Matsumoto family has been wiped out, all of their business shares are up for grabs. Can the Takahashi family still compete with us in this state? If we seize this opportunity and absorb the assets of both the Takahashi and Matsumoto families, the Ito family could soon become the #1 family in Japan. Yuhiko Ito nodded, but there was no joy on his face. Instead, he sighed deeply. I once hoped to uphold the spirit of a samurai and compete fairly with the Takahashi family. Instead, I've become the clam and the snipe fighting each other, only for the fishermen to reap the benefits. Life is truly unpredictable. Charlie looked at Yuhiko Ito with genuine admiration. In such circumstances, most people would be ecstatic, yet Yuhiko was able to see the situation so clearly. Emi Ito then said firmly, "Brother, there's no need to dwell on how we won. What happened to those two families was beyond our control. Even if we benefit from it, there's nothing shameful about that. Our priority now should be to clean up the battlefield as quickly as possible and use this opportunity to push the Ito family into an unassailable position." Yuhiko Ito paused, then turned toward Charlie. He clasped his fists and said solemnly, "Mr. Wade, thank you. Without you, the fate of the Ito family might have ended exactly like Takahashi Jinji's. If it weren't for your help, we would have already fallen into Matsumoto's trap and been completely destroyed. You are the great benefactor of the Ito family." Seeing this, Emi Ito immediately stood up, knelt on one knee, clasped her fists, and said sincerely, "Mr. Wade, my brother's legs are injured, so please allow me to express our gratitude on behalf of the Ito family." Nanako Ito also stood up quickly, knelt beside her aunt, and said softly, "Charlie, please accept Nanako's thanks as well." Charlie sighed quietly and said seriously, "Please get up. There's no need for this. I only helped the Ito family by coincidence. The real fortune lies with the Ito family itself." Emi Ito and Nanako Ito rose as instructed. Turning to Yuhiko Ito, Emi Ito said, "Brother, Mr. Wade is right. Aside from his help, our Ito family truly has incredible luck this time. Not only can we absorb the assets of the Takahashi and Matsumoto families, but we can also exploit the Takahashi family's current weakness to secure cooperation with the Banks family. At this point, the Ito family may be their only viable partner." "No!" Yuhiko Ito said decisively. "From this moment on, the Ito family will not cooperate with the Banks family in any form." Emi Ito was stunned. "Brother, why? Weren't you determined to secure this cooperation before?" Yuhiko Ito replied solemnly, "Because I've finally realized that I don't understand the Banks family at all. What happened to the Matsumoto family has exposed their true nature. The Banks family is vicious and utterly unscrupulous. They don't even spare women or children. Cooperating with them is no different from seeking the skin of a tiger." Emi Ito's face paled. "You're right, the Banks family is terrifyingly ruthless." Suddenly, Emi Ito thought of something and said quickly, "Brother, I've heard that another Chinese family, ranked just below the Banks family, is also planning to enter the maritime shipping industry. They've been competing with the Banks family for years, much like our rivalry with the Takahashi family. If possible, we could consider cooperating with the Wade family instead." Yuhiko Ito shook his head firmly. "No. Both the Banks family and the Wade family are terrifyingly powerful. In recent years, China's economic rise has been unstoppable, and their strength far surpasses that of any other Asian families. We are no match for either of them. Cooperating with the Banks family is courting death, and aligning with the Wade family would completely antagonize the Banks family. We must not put ourselves in such a dangerous position." After a moment of contemplation, Yuhiko Ito said resolutely, "Therefore, starting today, the Ito family will cease all cooperation with foreign families and reject any invitations from them. We will focus entirely on strengthening our domestic foundations in Japan. When our strength one day matches that of the Wade and Banks families, only then will cooperation be worth considering." Chapter 1813. After listening to Yuhiko Ito's insights, Charlie felt genuine admiration for him. It was clear that Yuhiko possessed broad vision and the ability to restrain his own greed, rather than blindly pursuing expansion or dominance. If he had belonged to a more aggressive and ambitious clan, the situation would likely have escalated rapidly, with ruthless power struggles erupting on all sides. On one front, such a family would aggressively suppress domestic rivals, attempting to seize their shares and establish absolute dominance. On another, they would hastily align themselves with powerful overseas families to rapidly expand profit channels and accelerate growth. However, Yuhiko Ito had a clear understanding of the surrounding environment and the hidden dangers within it. The Banks family was, without question, a predatory force. A family like that lacked moral bottom lines and basic human decency. Any cooperation with them required extreme caution, as betrayal could come at any moment. Moreover, aligning with the Banks family's rivals would effectively place one directly in opposition to them, drastically increasing the risks involved. Given these realities, focusing on internal consolidation rather than reckless expansion was undoubtedly the wiser choice. Emi Ito understood her brother's concerns and nodded earnestly. "Brother, I understand now." Emi was too naive to think that far ahead. Yuhiko Ito waved his hand lightly. "Your thinking wasn't wrong. Business itself is often a gamble. You can either keep betting small, hoping for a massive payoff in the future, or, once you've accumulated enough capital, learn to judge the situation clearly and move cautiously." He continued with a heavy sigh, his tone subdued. "If it weren't for what happened tonight, I might have shared your perspective and taken a risky step forward. But after experiencing life and death, I finally understood the true value of being alive. When I nearly lost Nanako, that realization struck me even harder. From now on, stability is my top priority." Emi Ito nodded silently, fully absorbing his words. At that moment, Yuhiko Ito turned to Nanako Ito and spoke solemnly. "Nanako, now that you've recovered, you should stay in Tokyo with Oda-san." Nanako hesitated briefly. She had grown accustomed to her life in Kyoto and was reluctant to leave it behind. However, she understood the gravity of the situation and knew that personal preferences had to be set aside. She quickly nodded. "All right, Oda-san. I'll stay with you." Yuhiko Ito explained calmly, "Keeping you in Tokyo will allow us to be together, and it will also give you the opportunity to gradually get involved in the family business and prepare yourself for succession." Nanako looked uneasy. "Oda-san, I don't have any experience managing a family business. Isn't this a little too early?" Yuhiko Ito nodded. "Yes, it is somewhat early. But the situation is special. With my mobility severely impaired, managing everything will become increasingly difficult." He sighed softly, loneliness evident in his voice. "Moreover, my condition makes it unsuitable for me to appear frequently in public. That would affect the Ito family's image. Therefore, you must begin preparing to take my place, at the very least, to represent the Ito family externally and serve as our public face." Chapter 18:14. Emi Ito encouraged her gently. "Nanako, now is the time for you to step up for your father. Let him guide and teach you." Nanako nodded firmly. "All right. I'll do my best." Hearing her decisive response, both Yuhiko Ito and Emi Ito felt a wave of relief. Yuhiko had always placed great expectations on his daughter. However, in the past, Nanako had been far more interested in martial arts and personal cultivation, showing little enthusiasm for business operations or corporate management. Even now, Yuhiko was still contemplating how to gradually guide her toward taking responsibility for the family enterprise. He had once believed he still had another 10 years, enough time to let Nanako enjoy her freedom. But reality changed in an instant. Although many aspects of Japanese culture originated from China, they evolved along very different paths. In China, many entrepreneurs focused primarily on profit and often paid little attention to their public image. In contrast, after the Meiji Restoration, Japan underwent deep westernization, leading its business leaders to place enormous importance on appearance and public perception. For example, even during the scorching summer months, Japanese companies often require employees to wear full formal attire, shirts, suits, and ties, regardless of the heat. Likewise, Japanese entrepreneurs attend press conferences and public events impeccably dressed, no matter their age. Their communication style is equally distinctive. In conversation, they may suddenly bow deeply at a 90-degree angle before returning to their original posture. Given all this, Yuhiko Ito was no longer well-suited to act as the company's public representative. Nanako Ito, on the other hand, despite her youth, possessed a refined appearance and elegant temperament that perfectly matched Japanese aesthetic ideals. She was an ideal candidate to represent the Ito family on the public stage. Charlie also held a very positive view of Nanako and smiled as he encouraged her. If Nanako leads the Ito family, she could turn it into a fashionable, celebrity-style enterprise. The media would go crazy over a beautiful president. With the right momentum, the Ito family's businesses could grow explosively. Embarrassed by his words, Nanako blushed. "Charlie, don't tease me. I don't have what it takes to be some beautiful president. I'd just be a duck trying to climb a ladder." Charlie shook his head seriously. "Don't underestimate yourself. With your appearance, temperament, and presence, you're destined to become one of Japan's most talked-about female entrepreneurs. Who knows, one day, you might even become a symbol of Japan's business world on the international stage." Nanako felt flattered, her heart filled with both joy and shyness. As a young woman experiencing love for the first time, she couldn't hide her emotions and instinctively lowered her head in embarrassment. Yuhiko Ito noticed his daughter's reaction immediately. At that moment, he realized that Nanako had already developed feelings for Charlie. After quietly observing her for a while, his suspicion was confirmed. As a father, he felt a trace of melancholy, but also relief that his daughter was emotionally maturing. He then spoke calmly. Nanako, why don't you step outside for a moment? I'd like to speak with Mr. Wade privately." Chapter 18:15. Ito and Nanako Ito didn't think much of it. Seeing that Yuhiko Ito intended to have a private conversation with Charlie, they excused themselves and left the hospital room. Once the two women had gone, Yuhiko Ito turned to Charlie and said solemnly, "Mr. Wade, I must apologize for my earlier behavior. What you did tonight was truly admirable. Thank you for resolving the crisis and saving the young woman of the Ito family. If the Banks family had believed that the Ito family was responsible for the deaths of their heirs, we would have faced complete annihilation." Charlie smiled faintly and replied, "Mr. Ito, you're being overly polite. I helped Nanako out of friendship. As for indirectly helping the Ito family, there's no need to dwell on it. After all, I accepted your money. There's an old saying about taking money to eliminate disaster. How could I take the money without doing the job?" Yuhiko Ito was momentarily stunned. Charlie's meaning was unmistakable. Since he had taken the $4.5 billion, he had fulfilled his obligation to the Ito family. Understanding this, Yuhiko felt conflicted. Although he knew his daughter's life was worth far more than $4.5 billion, the thought of losing such an enormous sum still caused him genuine pain. However, he also understood that once the money was gone, it was gone for good. There was no recovering it. Since dwelling on it would only bring frustration, he chose to let it go. With a slightly awkward smile, he said, "Mr. Wade, I've noticed that Oracle Pharmaceutical is developing rapidly. With the acquisition of Kobayashi Pharmaceutical, its future prospects are even brighter. I was wondering whether there might be an opportunity for cooperation between us." Charlie smiled calmly. "Mr. Ito, there isn't much room for cooperation in that regard. Oracle Pharmaceutical is my life's work, and I have no intention of giving up any part of it." Yuhiko quickly clarified, "Mr. Wade, I'm not asking for a share. I sincerely wish to explore meaningful cooperation. In the future, the Ito family will be led by Nanako. Since you and Nanako are friends, there may be opportunities for deeper cooperation that could benefit both sides." Charlie nodded slightly. "I'll consider it in the future. If the opportunity presents itself, I won't refuse to cooperate with Miss Nanako." "That's good." Yuhiko Ito finally relaxed and then said seriously, "Mr. Wade, it's clear to me that Nanako has strong feelings for you. If there's even a slight possibility between the two of you, I would feel completely at ease." Charlie immediately interrupted, Mr. Ito, Miss Nanako is still young. It's best not to discuss such matters. If misunderstood, it could damage her reputation. Yuhiko waved his hand dismissively. I've raised my daughter for 22 years. No one understands her better than I do. I can tell that she genuinely likes you. If circumstances allow, I sincerely suggest you consider staying in Japan. With Oracle Pharmaceutical and the Ito family backing you, if you and Nanako were to become husband and wife, you would undoubtedly become a dominant force across Asia. Charlie chuckled lightly and asked, Mr. Ito, have you looked into my background? You must know that I'm already married. Chapter 1816. I know, Yuhiko Ito replied calmly with a faint smile. So what if you're married? You're married, yet Nanako still likes you. That only proves your worth. We don't concern ourselves with your past or present, only your future. He continued earnestly, Mr. Wade, after everything that happened today, I've gained a new understanding of life. Wealth or poverty, none of it matters in the end. When a person dies, everything becomes meaningless. Before today, I would never have considered allowing my daughter to marry a foreign man. But now, those ideas seem insignificant. What truly matters is my daughter's happiness, how she can live the best possible life. Mr. Wade, you possess ability, strength, and charisma. Nanako has both inner substance and outer beauty, and she genuinely loves you. I believe you have feelings for her as well. Otherwise, you wouldn't have come to Japan, made a special trip to Kyoto to save her life, healed her injuries, and driven hundreds of kilometers overnight to bring her here. Charlie nodded calmly. Mr. Ito, I won't deny that Nanako is an outstanding woman. But I must repeat, I'm already married. Yuhiko waved dismissively. Stop using marriage as an excuse. If you want, you can divorce. Even if you don't, you could still marry Nanako here in Japan. As long as you don't return, there won't be any trouble. Charlie shook his head with a faint smile. Mr. Ito, I admire Nanako deeply, but what you're suggesting is simply impossible. After a brief pause, he added, besides, I won't be staying in Japan. I'll be returning to China by tomorrow at the latest. Yuhiko smiled meaningfully. Mr. Wade, there's a Chinese saying, good birds choose good trees. I've researched your background, and frankly, your current wife isn't worthy of you. Charlie looked at Yuhiko calmly and smiled. It seems Mr. Ito knows Chinese culture well. Earlier you spoke of digging deep and storing grain, and now it's good birds choose good trees. You're quite versed in Chinese sayings. Yuhiko replied sincerely, in my youth, I admired Togo Hihikairo, the naval commander who defeated the Russian fleet at Tsushima. It said he carried a waist plaque engraved with the words, a lifetime bowing to Yangming. From that, I learned that Togo was deeply influenced by the Chinese philosopher Wang Yangming. That inspired me to study Chinese history, culture, and classical thought. Charlie nodded approvingly. Mr. Ito, your scholarly dedication is admirable. But I must make one thing clear, I will not divorce my wife. Please don't raise this matter again. He added firmly, and since I'll be leaving Japan soon, I ask that you not mention this to Nanako. I don't want her to be troubled by it. Yuhiko Ito looked at Charlie seriously. Mr. Wade, you Chinese believe in destiny and cycles of fate. Look at what happened tonight. Not long ago, Nanako was confined to a wheelchair, declared by doctors that she might never walk again. And now? As he spoke, Yuhiko gently touched his amputated knee and chuckled softly. Now she stands on her own 2 feet, while I've lost mine. Isn't that proof that fate moves in circles? Charlie frowned slightly. Mr. Ito, I'm not sure I understand what you're getting at. Yuhiko smiled faintly. What I mean is this, even if you leave Japan today and swear never to return, fate may still drag you back here someday. The same goes for your marriage. Even if you believe you'll never divorce, fate may one day separate you. Life is complex and unpredictable, Mr. Wade. You're still young, with many decades ahead of you. Why speak so absolutely now? Chapter 1817. Charlie was taken aback by Yuhiko Ito's words. He had not expected Ito to possess such extensive knowledge of Chinese culture, nor had he anticipated him bringing up the concept of the cycle of fate. While Charlie was uncertain about how deeply the Japanese believed in feng shui, he knew that they at least believed in fate. Although Yuhiko Ito's remarks sounded somewhat mystical at first, there was undeniably a trace of truth in them. After all, no one could truly speak with absolute certainty about fate. His thoughts drifted to Orion Exier, the centenarian feng shui master he had once met at Wade Mountain in Eastcliff. It was precisely through his comprehension of the cycle of fate that Orion had encountered his own destiny there. Orion had also played a critical role in altering Wade Shoal's fate, enabling him to rise above his original circumstances. That elderly man undoubtedly possessed an exceptionally deep understanding of destiny. Unfortunately, he was separated by an ocean, and the chances of meeting again were slim. Charlie often found himself wishing he could sit with Orion over a cup of tea and have a profound discussion about fate and life. At that moment, Yuhiko Ito's words echoed again in Charlie's mind. He began to contemplate the possibility of meeting Orion Exier again in the future. Likewise, he reflected on the idea that even if he left Tokyo, or Japan, today, fate might still bring him back someday. Even if he never returned, Charlie felt there was still a chance he would meet Nanako Ito again in the future. With these thoughts in mind, Charlie let out a quiet sigh and said to Yuhiko Ito, "Mr. Ito, I think it's best to let the future take its own course. After all, neither of us can truly control fate." Yuhiko Ito nodded solemnly and replied, "Mr. Wade, from today onward, the doors of the Ito family will always remain open to you. In the future, as the Ito family grows stronger, we will avoid cooperation with other overseas families or businesses. However, if you ever wish to expand your horizons or seek collaboration, the Ito family will support you without reservation." Charlie smiled faintly and said, "Thank you for your kindness, Mr. Ito, but I'm not someone driven by ambition or grand aspirations. Let's leave it at that." Although Charlie's impression of Yuhiko Ito had improved somewhat, he still remained cautious. As such, he deliberately avoided revealing any of his long-term plans. Deep down, however, Charlie harbored an intense desire to expand Oracle Pharmaceutical and strengthen his career. If he wanted to avenge his parents, he knew relying solely on personal strength would never be enough. He needed not only greater individual power but also overwhelming financial strength. Otherwise, how could he possibly contend with a colossal force like the Banks family? Just thinking about how the Banks family had maneuvered power across borders to wipe out the Matsumoto family made their strength abundantly clear. This demonstrated not only the sheer number of top-tier masters under the Banks family's command, but also their terrifying efficiency. When Fitz and Zara encountered trouble in Japan, the Banks family had been able to mobilize a large number of elite fighters in an extremely short time, an ability comparable to that of a nation's military force. Without sufficient power, no individual could stand against such a family through brute force alone. Moreover, the combined combat strength of hundreds of elite masters was overwhelming. Charlie knew that in his current state, he was still far from capable of fully protecting those around him. Chapter 1818. Charlie was keenly aware that if he wanted to stand on equal footing with a top-tier family like the Banks family in the future, he needed to cultivate formidable comprehensive strength, and the resolve to match it. At the same time, he had yet to determine how much responsibility the Wade family bore for his parents' deaths. If the Wade family was deeply implicated, then one day he might have to face not only the Banks family, but also the Wade family itself. With this realization, Charlie resolved that after returning to Oris Hill, he would maintain a low profile while steadily developing Oracle Pharmaceutical. By using Oracle Pharmaceutical as his foundation and advancing step by step, he intended to build his own business empire. This path would eventually give him the opportunity to confront the Banks family, the Wade family, or even crush them both. Yuhiko Ito, of course, had no knowledge of Charlie's true identity or the storm brewing in his heart. Seeing Charlie's evident drive, he couldn't help but offer some advice. "Mr. Wade," Yuhiko Ito said, "with Oracle Pharmaceutical as your foundation and such ample cash reserves, why not expand further? Take ocean transportation, for example. The majority of international oil trade and bulk logistics rely on maritime shipping. Given the current downturn in the global economy, this is a golden opportunity to acquire assets at low prices. Furthermore, China currently has the strongest economic momentum in the world and the most complete industrial system. Export trade is growing year after year, and China's demand for global shipping will only continue to rise. The prospects are enormous. If you're interested, you could begin in mainland China. Should you wish to expand into Japan's port and shipping industries, the Ito family would be more than willing to cooperate. Even if it means playing a supporting role, I have no objections. At that moment, Yuhiko Ito's thoughts were quite straightforward. He believed that the $4.5 billion was unlikely to ever be recovered, and Oracle Pharmaceutical probably wouldn't sell shares. In that case, it would be better to slowly draw Charlie closer. If Charlie could eventually become part of the Ito family as a son-in-law, what future concerns would there be? Charlie was powerful and capable, he had saved Yuhiko's daughter's life. More importantly, Nanako had genuine feelings for him. In the past, Yuhiko had wanted his daughter to marry Ichiro Kobayashi, not because he was eager to form ties with the Kobayashi family, but because Nanako had been young, innocent, and ignorant of love. At that time, she had no one she truly liked, nor did she even know what love felt like. Rather than leaving her future to chance, Yuhiko had chosen what he believed to be the best possible match for her. But now, things were different. His daughter had clearly fallen for someone. As a father, Yuhiko only wanted his daughter to be happy. He also knew that a man like Charlie would make an outstanding son-in-law. For Nanako's happiness, he was even willing to offer the entire Ito family as her dowry. After all, she was his only daughter, and her lifelong happiness mattered more than anything else. Whether the family name was Ito, Yamada, Watanabe, or even Wade, was irrelevant. In Yuhiko's eyes, true inheritance was determined by blood, not by surname. Charlie smiled and replied sincerely, "It's true that my current focus is on developing Oracle Pharmaceutical. If it grows successfully, I'll consider expanding into other fields in the future." Chapter 18-19. After Charlie temporarily declined his proposal, Yuhiko Ito let out a regretful sigh. He genuinely hoped that Charlie would help establish an ocean shipping sector. At present, most of Asia's ocean shipping operations are centered in China, where more than half of the world's 10 busiest ports are located. Such massive import and export activity is the backbone of a thriving ocean shipping industry. This market, however, was beyond Japan's reach. Even if the Ito family attempted to enter the industry independently, the domestic market lacked sufficient demand. Without the necessary scale and support, even the most powerful families would struggle to succeed. With that in mind, Yuhiko Ito said to Charlie, "Mr. Wade, the Ito family intends to gradually hand over operations and management to Nanako. If you ever reconsider, you may contact her at any time. I believe the two of you could build a very solid foundation for cooperation." Charlie nodded slightly and replied sincerely, "If I ever have that intention, I will certainly contact Miss Nanako." Yuhiko Ito smiled warmly and said, "Nanako is an exceptional girl. I can say with confidence that you won't find a better woman in Japan. Whoever marries her will be marrying the finest woman in Japanese society. That man will surely be envied by men all over the world." Charlie smiled politely but did not respond. Knowing that great achievements could not be rushed, Yuhiko Ito suggested, "Mr. Wade, you and the young lady must be exhausted after such a long night. Shall I arrange for you to rest at our home first?" Charlie waved his hand and said, "There's no need, Mr. Ito. I still have matters to attend to and must return to Osaka, so I won't impose on you any further." "That won't do," Yuhiko Ito said firmly. "Mr. Wade, you've been driving all night without rest or food. If you leave like this, wouldn't that bring shame upon the hospitality my family has upheld for generations?" As he spoke, he didn't wait for Charlie to refuse. Instead, he pressed the pager beside the bed and instructed, "Call Huimei and Nanako in." Moments later, Nanako Ito and Emi Ito knocked softly and entered the room. Nanako asked gently, "Otosan, what do you need?" Yuhiko Ito turned to Emi Ito and said, "Emi, Mr. Wade and Nanako have worked tirelessly all night. Arrange for someone to escort them back to the house to rest. And call ahead, have the chef prepare a proper meal." Emi Ito responded promptly, "Understood, brother." Charlie said earnestly, "Mr. Ito, there's really no need to go through so much trouble. I can return to Osaka directly." Yuhiko Ito replied decisively, "Mr. Wade, even if you intend to return to Osaka, you must at least come to the house, eat a meal, drink some tea, and rest briefly before leaving." Nanako also persuaded him softly, "Yes, Charlie. The residence isn't far. Just eat something and rest a little before setting off again. It's still early." It was already past 4 in the morning. After more than 3 hours of non-stop driving, they had only just arrived in Tokyo. It was winter, and the sky was still pitch dark, with at least 2 more hours before dawn. Seeing the sincerity in both father and daughter, Charlie finally relented and said, "In that case, I'll accept your hospitality." Upon hearing this, Emi Ito immediately said, "I'll arrange the convoy right away. There are officers from the Metropolitan Police Department nearby, so security won't be an issue." Yuhiko Ito nodded and added solemnly, "Be sure Mr. Wade is treated with the highest level of respect." Chapter 1820. Emi Ito quickly assembled an escort team, while Charlie continued driving the car he had arrived in. Nanako Ito, without hesitation, also got into Charlie's vehicle. Charlie took the driver's seat, and under the guidance of the convoy, the group headed toward the Ito family's residence in Tokyo. Although Tokyo is one of the most expensive and bustling cities in the world, the Ito family owns a private manor located in a quiet and secluded area. The manor was built in a traditional Japanese architectural style, simple and elegant on the surface, yet exuding understated luxury. Charlie noticed that even the wood used in the construction was extraordinary. For elite families, the problem was never where to spend money, but how to spend extravagantly everywhere. If premium materials were available, they would never settle for ordinary ones. Imported materials always took precedence over domestic options. In the end, there was only one rule: choose what was expensive, not merely what was suitable. Thanks to Emi Ito's prior arrangements, the household staff were already standing neatly at attention, at the gate, in the courtyard, and throughout the villa, each dressed immaculately. After parking the car, Charlie followed Nanako Ito through the beautifully landscaped courtyard toward the villa. Every servant they passed bowed deeply in greeting. The Ito family's Tokyo residence was a massive, multi-story wooden structure, resembling an ancient temple. Despite its traditional exterior, the interior space was astonishingly vast. When they reached the entrance hall, Nanako Ito suddenly knelt down, empty-handed, and said softly, "Charlie, please allow me to change your slippers." Startled, Charlie hurriedly waved his hand. No, that's not necessary. Just give me the slippers, I can do it myself." Nanako shook her head gently and said, "This is my responsibility. It's a Japanese custom. Since you're here, you should respect our traditions." Charlie instinctively thought about how different this was from China's more egalitarian views and couldn't help wondering why women in Japan still knelt to change men's shoes. However, he also understood that rejecting a deeply ingrained custom could be seen as disrespectful. After a brief hesitation, he lifted his feet and said sincerely, "Then I'll trouble you, Miss Nanako." Nanako Ito smiled shyly and looked up at him. Dressed in her kimono, she was breathtakingly beautiful. She gently held his feet with both hands and carefully helped him put on the slippers. After standing up, she said softly, "Charlie, please come in." Charlie nodded and entered the villa with her. As they walked, Nanako explained, "This house is over 100 years old. It was badly damaged during the Great Kanto earthquake. Because restoration costs were extremely high, it was abandoned for many years. Later, my father bought it and spent a great deal of money restoring it to what it is today." Charlie asked curiously, "It seems Mr. Ito really likes old houses. The one in Kyoto looks even older than this." Nanako smiled faintly. "Actually, this was more for me. After I moved from Kyoto to Tokyo at 14, I had difficulty adjusting. So my father bought this place and renovated it according to my preferences." She added softly, "But even so, I still love Kyoto very much." Charlie nodded in agreement. "This place is peaceful amid the chaos, and its ancient charm is impressive. But I agree, the Kyoto residence is even more beautiful. Nanako sighed quietly and said, "My father wants me to take over the family business. That means I may not have many chances to return there." She looked up at Charlie, her eyes filled with hope, and asked, "Charlie, I have a small request. Would you be willing to agree to it?" Chapter 18:21. Upon hearing Nanako's request, Charlie opened his mouth and replied, "Go ahead and speak. If it's something I can do, I will agree." Nanako Ito took a moment to gather her thoughts, looking at him with hopeful eyes, then said earnestly, "I would like to ask you to stay a bit longer, Charlie." "Longer?" Charlie raised an eyebrow, slightly surprised, and asked, "How much longer are we talking about?" "To be honest, I was planning to fly back to China tonight. My flight is already waiting in Osaka." A wave of emotion swept over Nanako, and her eyelids drooped as she looked down and whispered, "Well, that really depends on your schedule. If time is tight, just a few hours would be fine." She quickly added, "Please don't misunderstand, Charlie. The main reason is that both my father and Mr. Tanaka are seriously injured and in the hospital. My aunt is overwhelmed with family matters and taking care of them. I'm feeling a bit lost myself and don't know where to start. I just need you to be here with me for a few more hours." Charlie considered her words and nodded. "All right, I can stay until the afternoon since it will take me about 4 hours to return to Osaka." Nanako asked hesitantly, "Did you book your flight from Osaka?" "No," Charlie replied honestly. "A friend arranged a private jet, which is currently at Osaka Airport." Nanako suggested cautiously, "Charlie, what if you let your traveling companions fly to Tokyo first, and then you meet them at the airport to return to China? That way, you could save 4 hours of driving." After saying this, she quickly added, "But if that's inconvenient, please don't feel pressured." Charlie pondered her suggestion. Originally, he planned to drive back to Osaka to meet Isaac Cameron, Don Albert, and Liam before flying back to Oris Hill. But Nanako's idea was practical. If Isaac and the others flew directly to Tokyo, it would eliminate the long drive. Additionally, Nanako Ito's sense of helplessness and disorientation after the recent events involving her family made her request reasonable. Staying a few more hours could be beneficial for both, giving Charlie a chance to gather further intelligence on the Banks family's activities in Tokyo. Having thought this through, he said to Nanako, "If that's the case, I'll wait until dawn to check in with my friends and see how they're doing." Excitedly, Nanako clenched her fists and exclaimed, "That's wonderful." With a bright smile, Nanako quickly invited Charlie to her family's restaurant, which was said to be larger than a typical medium-sized restaurant. As Charlie entered, he felt as though he had stepped into a Japanese-style buffet, with several chefs busy preparing a variety of dishes. Looking around with anticipation, Nanako asked Charlie, "Is there anything here that you particularly enjoy? Just let me know, and the chefs will prepare it for you right away." Chapter 18:22. After scanning the restaurant for a while, Charlie smiled slightly and said, "Thank you. I'll have a bowl of ramen, please." Nanako quickly addressed the chef in charge of ramen. "Yokoyama-san, could you please prepare 2 bowls of ramen? Make sure Mr. Wade's bowl has double noodles." The chef bowed respectfully. "Certainly, my lady. Please wait a moment with Mr. Wade." Meanwhile, elsewhere. While Charlie and Nanako were enjoying breakfast at the Ito residence, Zane, a man in his 50s, was already awake in the presidential suite of the St. Regis Tokyo. Holding a cup of coffee in one hand and a cigarette in the other, he gazed out at the dimly lit Tokyo streets, his expression darkening. As his cigarette burned down, he flicked the butt into the ashtray, lit another, and turned to his confidant, Mr. Palmer. "How are the young masters and young ladies doing?" Mr. Palmer glanced at the clock and replied, "The plane should land in Eastcliff in about half an hour. I've already notified the family." The wife rushed to the airport with the doctor. Once the plane lands, they will take the young master and miss directly to the family hospital for thorough examinations. "All right," Zane nodded, his expression darkening further. "This incident was extremely dangerous. I nearly lost both Fitz and Zara in Tokyo. That damned Matsumoto, gone as he is, I still can't quell my anger." Mr. Palmer quickly responded, "Master, the Matsumoto family has already been wiped out. There's no need to dwell on anger. Zane gritted his teeth, inhaling from his cigarette before speaking fiercely. If it weren't for the convenience of being in Tokyo, I would have had Zion capture Mr. Matsumoto right in front of me and make him suffer 1,000 deaths. Mr. Palmer cautioned, Master, the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department suspects the Banks family was behind this incident. They have protested while you were resting, claiming that we caused too much disturbance without informing them. They have even threatened to escalate this to the Homeland Security Council, claiming it compromised national security. Compromised national security? Zane scoffed. A minor figure like Matsumoto cannot invoke national security. They're just unhappy we eliminated so many people in Tokyo. Exactly, Mr. Palmer confirmed. The Tokyo authorities share this dissatisfaction. They feel the situation is too severe and negatively impacts the city's image, so they've decided to investigate thoroughly. Additionally, international airports in Tokyo and nearby cities are on high alert. They are rigorously screening all departing foreigners and have even temporarily banned private jets and charter flights. Our private jets are under surveillance. Things are getting complicated. Zane inquired, which other airports are relatively less strict? Mr. Palmer replied, currently, only Osaka Airport seems less strict due to its distance, it's hundreds of kilometers away. Zane nodded. Then have them disperse. They should use public transportation to reach Osaka and catch another flight from China. Remind them to avoid Eastcliff to prevent alerting Japanese customs. We need Zion and the others involved in the operation back home tonight. Understood, Master. Mr. Palmer nodded respectfully. When do you plan to return? I'm in no rush, Zane replied with a cold smile. The Takahashi family has suffered heavy losses, the Matsumoto family is completely destroyed, and Yuhiko Ito is incapacitated. Tokyo feels secure for now, I'll stay a couple more days. After a moment, he added, Mr. Palmer, prepare some gifts for the patients this morning, and accompany me to the hospital at noon to visit Yuhiko Ito. He is our only partner at the moment. Chapter 1823. Charlie and Nanako Ito enjoyed breakfast together, with the Tokyo sky brightening their morning. Nanako Ito turned to Charlie and said, Charlie, I'll have the servants prepare a guest room for you. You should take a short rest. I haven't slept all night, and it's been really tough. Charlie smiled gently, shaking his head. No need. I'm not tired. How can you possibly not be tired? Nanako asked, concern evident in her voice. Since the battle with the Tingling ninja last night, you've gone non-stop, 2 battles and driving hundreds of kilometers. Charlie chuckled. But you haven't rested either. Don't you feel tired? Nanako looked momentarily taken aback. After a brief pause, she replied, surprisingly, I don't feel tired at all. In fact, I feel as if I have endless energy. I'm in great shape. Then, with sudden realization, she asked, Charlie, is this because of the medicine you gave me? Charlie nodded with a smile. Yes. That medicine not only heals injuries but also enhances physical capabilities and endurance, making it harder to feel fatigued. Nanako couldn't help but exclaim, this medicine is incredible. If it could be mass-produced, Oracle Pharmaceutical would become a leading global company. Charlie replied with a slight grin, unfortunately, this medicine can't be produced on a large scale. It's an extremely rare item, a legacy from ancient Chinese genius doctors. For every pill made, one is lost. While the ingredients for the rejuvenating pills are relatively easy to find, the crucial factor is that they must be crafted with Reiki. Reiki acts like the powerful energy that transforms steel into molten iron during the steelmaking process. Without this energy, even if iron ore is piled together for thousands of years, it won't become steel. Thus, while Charlie can create this medicine, mass production is nearly impossible. Moreover, he had no intention of releasing such a potent medicine for mass consumption. This substance could be harmful to ordinary people, and if it flooded the market, it could create chaos, which wouldn't be beneficial for him. When Nanako heard this, she felt a twinge of regret but quickly pushed the thought aside. Charlie glanced at the time. I'm going to call a friend and let them know I'm in Tokyo. Nanako nodded, looking forward to the conversation. Charlie pulled out his cell phone and dialed Isaac Cameron. As soon as the call connected, Isaac asked, "Master, where have you been? We couldn't find you all night." Charlie replied, "I'm in Tokyo." "Ha!" Isaac sounded puzzled. "Didn't you say you were going to see friends in Kyoto? Why are you in Tokyo now? That's several hundred kilometers away." Charlie explained, "Something happened at my friend's place, so I'm here to help her." Then he asked, "By the way, Isaac, how are things going in Osaka?" Isaac responded quickly, "Everything is going well, young master. Today is almost wrapped up. When do you plan to return to Oris Hill?" Charlie said, "I called to discuss that. I have some matters to attend to in Tokyo. Once you're done, fly to Tokyo first. I'll meet you at the airport, and then we can fly back to Oris Hill together." Isaac interjected, "Master, private jets are currently restricted from flying in Tokyo." Charlie asked in surprise, "Why are private jets restricted in Tokyo?" Chapter 1824. Isaac Cameron explained, "My Japanese colleagues informed me that in the past 2 days, Tokyo has experienced several serious criminal incidents, seemingly linked to foreign entities. Consequently, customs controls and private jet regulations have tightened significantly. Currently, if you wish to exit Japan, the only operational flights are from Osaka, elsewhere is not an option." Upon hearing this, Charlie grasped the underlying implications. The increased security in Tokyo was likely tied to the Banks family's involvement in the murder of Ryoto Matsumoto. When reflecting on this, the reasoning became clear. Consider the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department. When a crime occurs in Tokyo, their goal is to address it through conventional legal channels. However, when a group of foreigners takes matters into their own hands and brutally targets Japanese nationals, such actions are intolerable to any nation's security apparatus. This explains why the Tokyo Metropolitan Police and even the Japanese Homeland Security are eager to apprehend the Banks family's vigilante group quickly. They aim to set an example and preserve their reputation. Charlie sighed and decided, "All right. You all wait for me in Osaka. I'll drive over in the afternoon." Isaac quickly interjected, "Master, driving such a long distance is impractical, especially with the heavy snow in Osaka. The highways are closed due to the snowstorm, and it might take 6 or 7 hours. Why not leave the car at Tokyo Airport and let my team handle it? You can fly directly from Tokyo to Osaka. Let's meet at the airport for a quicker transition." "So, there are no restrictions on flights from Tokyo to Osaka?" Charlie asked. Isaac confirmed, "Currently, domestic flights within Japan have no restrictions. They can't control all domestic and international flights at once, though restrictions will likely tighten soon. Let's leave tonight without delay. I'll aim to arrive at Osaka Airport by 7 and take off at 8, Charlie stated. Isaac replied eagerly, "That sounds perfect, Master. We'll be at Osaka Airport before 7 to wait for you." "Great. See you tonight." After hanging up, Nanako Ito asked, "Charlie, what's going on?" Charlie nodded and briefed her on the situation. After listening, Nanako said, "I'll help you look for a ticket right now." She promptly pulled out her phone to check flight options. "Charlie, there's a flight at 5:40 p.m. that arrives in Osaka at 6:40 p.m. Does that work for you?" Charlie nodded. "Perfect. Let's go with that option. Please give me your passport number, and I'll book the ticket. I'll drive you to the airport this afternoon," Nanako offered. Since short-haul tickets are affordable, Charlie accepted her help. "Thank you, Nanako." Nanako smiled. "No need for formality between us." Then, recalling something, she asked, "By the way, Charlie, do you want to get some gifts for your family when you return tonight? Shopping in Tokyo is convenient. The afternoons are usually bustling. If you want to shop, I can join you for lunch. How does that sound?" Charlie considered it. He definitely wanted to bring back gifts for his wife after being away so long, and his mother-in-law, Elaine, would also appreciate something. He decided to take a little time to shop. "All right, I'd appreciate your help showing me around since I'm not familiar with Tokyo," he replied. Nanako beamed. No problem. I'll take you to Ginza this afternoon. Then, remembering her father, Yuhiko Ito, she asked, would you mind coming with me to the hospital to bring my father some meals at noon? Of course. Let's visit the hospital first and then do some shopping, Charlie agreed without hesitation. If you want, I can continue directly with chapter 1825 and start building suspense around Charlie's movements in Tokyo and the Banks family surveillance, keeping tension high. Do you want me to continue with 1825? Chapter 1825. After breakfast, Charlie found himself unexpectedly pulled into Nanako Ito's boudoir, as she insisted he join her there. In a manner reminiscent of their time in Kyoto, Nanako invited Charlie to sit on the tatami mat, lit a plate of incense, and prepared a cup of traditional Japanese matcha for him. Charlie, she said, I'd like to review the financial statements and detailed information about the family business. I want to get a better understanding of how everything operates as soon as possible. If you're feeling bored, just let me know. With free time on his hands, Charlie replied casually, I've got nothing planned. You focus on what you need to do, I'll just play around on my phone for a bit. Although Charlie wasn't particularly fond of spending time on his mobile, he was different from the younger generation who seemed glued to their screens. His intent in checking his phone was primarily to catch up on Tokyo's news, hoping to discover some valuable information. Meanwhile, Nanako leaned in front of the bookcase, engrossed in the confidential family documents. The sensitive information she was examining was highly classified, yet she didn't seem to mind Charlie's presence beside her. As Charlie scrolled through local news articles, one headline caught his attention. The article reported a series of violent incidents occurring in Tokyo. The Yakuza, Japan's most notorious criminal organization, had issued a statement to its members nationwide, asserting that they would employ violence to combat violence and restore public order in Tokyo. The Yakuza, recognized as one of the world's largest gangster groups alongside the Italian mafia, commanded considerable influence and power. While their statement did not directly name anyone, it seemed clear that it was aimed at the Banks family. The Banks family had overstepped this time, antagonizing both the legitimate and underground sectors of Japanese society. Even if they managed to retreat without significant losses, future endeavors in Japan would likely come with heightened scrutiny from both the government and private organizations. At that moment, at the Eastcliff Wade family mansion, Charlie's grandfather Nathaniel called for an urgent family meeting in response to the same news. Today, Lord Banks appeared particularly pleased. While reviewing articles on his tablet, he remarked to the gathered family, the Banks family has really made a mess of things. Their negotiations are still unfinished, and their eldest grandson and granddaughter nearly lost their lives. Now, they've managed to offend all of Japan, it's going to be tough for them to operate here moving forward. Charlie's uncle Corin chuckled, clearly enjoying the situation. The Banks family has really embarrassed themselves this time. I bet the old man is having a tough time eating right now. Third Uncle Miles added with a hint of regret, in the end, the Banks family is somewhat fortunate. It's unbelievable. Ryoto Matsumoto orchestrated such a grand scheme, yet a mysterious figure managed to rescue Fitz and Zara. If they had perished in Tokyo, the Banks family would have suffered tremendously. They are two of the brightest talents in their younger generation. Indeed, Lord Banks sighed in response, while he has the strategy and boldness, he's aging, and Zane, despite his enthusiasm, is still lacking. In comparison to Bruce, he appears almost like a clown, insignificant. The woman he desperately pursued, after being turned down countless times by Bruce, ultimately settled for him. As he spoke, Lord Banks grimaced and sighed. If Bruce were still alive, not only would the Banks family not be the heavenly dragon, but they likely wouldn't even be able to rival the Wade family. Chapter 1826. As the old man lamented about Bruce once again, Corin, the boss, felt a bit uneasy. He interjected, Dad, Bruce has been away for so long. Can we please stop bringing him up? It's time to address our responsibilities. The entire Eastcliff family is intertwined in this situation, and it's beyond our control. Miles chimed in, agreeing with Corin, exactly, Dad. Why are we discussing Bruce when we should be focusing on Fitz and Zara? The old man sighed and waved his hand dismissively. Let's not dwell on that. The key point is that the Banks family is already stumbling in their first steps into Japan. This presents us with a significant opportunity to advance and capitalize on their misfortune. What are your thoughts? Exchanging glances, the others nodded in agreement. Korin added, "You're absolutely right, Dad. This is indeed a golden opportunity for us." Lord Wade nodded, but after a moment of contemplation, he cautioned, "However, we must avoid direct competition with the Banks family for now. We need to handle this discreetly and gradually, ensuring they remain unaware of our plans." Confused, Korin asked, "But Dad, the Banks family is known for their aggressive tactics in Japan. Shouldn't we be bold in pursuing our cooperation?" With a slight smile, Lord Wade replied, "The Banks family's power is undeniable. If we approach the Ito family too openly, it would be a direct slap to the Banks family, which they would not take lightly." He continued, "While we may strike the Banks family, their reaction could lead to conflict, causing us significant trouble." Korin quickly inquired, "So, what's your plan, Dad?" Lord Wade responded earnestly, "To effectively deal with the Banks family, we must analyze our opponent at a deeper level rather than merely comparing surface statistics." Korin immediately stood up, bowed, and clasped his fists. "I'm not as sharp as you, Dad. Please enlighten me." Lord Wade shook his head slightly, his thoughts drifting back to Bruce. He sighed internally, reflecting, "My eldest son, Korin, is talented but still lacks the genius-level insight needed for this situation. Bruce, on the other hand, is an extraordinary talent who never fully emerged into the world. He possesses an innate ability to learn intuitively, making him truly exceptional. What a pity." Noticing his father's fleeting disappointment, Korin felt his face flush with embarrassment. Lord Wade quickly set aside his thoughts and addressed everyone. "While the Banks family has numerous heirs, only Zane captures Lord Banks's attention. Furthermore, Zane's children are highly competitive and stand out among their peers. Particularly Zara, who enjoys immense favor from both Lord Banks and Zane. Their preference for her surpasses that of all other heirs, including the eldest grandson, Fitz. Thus, when Lord Banks passes, the power will inevitably shift to the Zane Banks family. In the future, Zara will hold significant influence within the Zane Banks family." As he spoke, Lord Wade's expression intensified, emphasizing, "Zara, being a woman, will eventually marry. Once that happens, it will lead to a division within the Banks family. Consequently, whoever wins Zara's heart will effectively gain control over half of the Banks family's assets." Chapter 1827. Korin listened to the old man's words and replied, somewhat bashfully, "Dad, last time you mentioned wanting to engage with the Banks family and make Zara the Wade family's daughter-in-law, but there aren't any suitable candidates." Lord Wade responded casually, "Didn't you mention before that Bruce's son would be a good option?" Korin countered, "But Stephen Thompson also said that Bruce's son is hesitant to return and acknowledge his heritage. Furthermore, he might harbor resentment towards us." William interjected, "He might dislike us, or he might not. I believe he would at least consider the proposal." Miles quickly asked, "Dad, are you suggesting that we should find Bruce's son and bring him back into the family?" Lord Wade confirmed, "Yes, I want to, but I still haven't figured out the best approach." Feeling uneasy, Korin quickly added, "Dad, Bruce's son has been away for many years and is completely unpredictable. Please reconsider." Lord Wade waved his hand dismissively. "You don't need to try to sway me. When I bought the Grand Group as a gift, I consulted Stephen Thompson. He actually agreed that Bruce's son would eventually return to the family. We don't have many male heirs, unlike the Banks family, which has many branches." Korin held his breath but managed to ask calmly, "Dad, what if Bruce's son doesn't want to return?" Lord Wade replied solemnly, "People can change, and I don't want to dwell on that today. When he returns, perhaps he'll be more inclined. If not tomorrow, then maybe in a year, 2 years, 3 years, or even 10 years, eventually, he may reconsider and be more open to it." Korin, Miles, and William all silently cursed to themselves. The greatest fear regarding family assets is scarcity. Whether it's $10,000 or $1 trillion, having one heir, 2, or 3 can lead to vastly different outcomes. Initially, Purchasing the Emgrand Group for Charlie cost the family $100 billion, along with an additional $10 billion in cash, which left everyone feeling uneasy. After all, following their father's death, when the estate was divided, that $10 billion meant that each of the 3 sons would have received at least $30 billion, but now that amount was lost. Consequently, they were all quite anxious about the prospect of Charlie returning to the Wade family. Lord Wade, however, was not focused on his sons or grandchildren but rather on his daughter, Cynthia Wade. He sighed and said, "Cynthia, the new year is approaching." Cynthia quickly stood up and replied, "Dad, please don't hesitate to share your thoughts, I will give it my all." Lord Wade nodded and instructed, "You will go to Oris Hill tomorrow, meet with Charlie, and have a proper conversation with him. Ask if he would be willing to return. If he shows interest, please invite him to spend the year with us." Cynthia Wade responded eagerly, "All right, Dad, I'll head to Oris Hill tomorrow." Then she paused and asked, "Dad, Charlie is already married. If he wants to return, should he bring his wife along?" Lord Wade waved his hand in annoyance. How could a woman from a third-rate city and a third-rate family be deemed worthy of entering the Wade family mansion? If Charlie returns, the first thing he must do is divorce her, and then we'll arrange for him to meet Zara to explore any possible future together. Understood. Cynthia Wade nodded, saying, "I will approach Charlie first and let him consider these matters step by step." Lord Wade smiled with satisfaction. "I leave this in your capable hands." Chapter 18:28. Corin felt a profound sadness weighing on him, yet he held back any objections. Instead, he redirected the conversation, asking, "Dad, didn't we discuss a trip to Japan? You just mentioned avoiding direct conflict with the Banks family. What are our next steps?" Lord Wade replied, "We can't make a big spectacle of it, but you can discreetly send someone to meet with Yuhiko Ito." Corin felt a sense of irritation bubble up, contemplating the idea of going alone. Considering a trip to Tokyo was in order, he offered, "Dad, I could fly to Tokyo tomorrow morning to meet with Yuhiko Ito myself." Lord Wade nodded in agreement but added, "I do want you to go, but it's not advisable for you to be the one." Corin was taken aback. "Dad, what do you mean?" he asked in confusion. Lord Wade explained, "Since the younger members of the Banks family are going, we must send someone as well." He then turned to Corin's son, his eldest grandson, John, and instructed, "John, you need to get ready. Leave before 10 o'clock so you can arrive in Tokyo by lunchtime." John quickly stood up and responded respectfully, "Understood, Grandpa. I'll start preparing right now. But once I meet Yuhiko Ito, how should I approach the project discussion?" Lord Wade waved his hand dismissively, saying, "You don't need to discuss anything specific. I've arranged some gifts for the project. You'll hand them over personally as a token of goodwill. Additionally, I want to establish a friendship with him. Just leave your contact information and return." John looked surprised and asked, "Is it really that straightforward?" Lord Wade affirmed, "Yes, it's that simple." He continued, "If you travel 2,000 kilometers merely to discuss cooperation, it lacks sincerity. However, if you travel that distance to visit someone who is unwell, that demonstrates true sincerity." Corin chuckled and remarked, "Dad, you've got it right. This time, the Banks family may find themselves outpaced by our Wade family." Lord Wade nodded in agreement, stating, "This is what we call being first." Meanwhile, Charlie enjoyed lunch with Nanako Ito at the Ito mansion, and the two later brought a meal prepared for Yuhiko Ito to the hospital. As they stepped outside, Zane arrived at Yuhiko Ito's hospital room accompanied by Mr. Palmer and several associates, carrying elegant gift boxes. Although Yuhiko Ito was reluctant to meet them, he understood the importance of not turning away those who come with good intentions, so Emi Ito graciously welcomed them inside. The group was very courteous as they approached Yuhiko Ito's bedside, expressing, "Ito brother, we heard about your situation and came to visit. It's truly an honor." Upon seeing Zane, Yuhiko Ito couldn't shake a feeling of unease despite Zane's seemingly harmless demeanor. The incident involving the Banks family's destruction of the Matsumoto family had left a significant psychological impact on Ito, leading him to realize that the seemingly gentle man before him could, in fact, be quite dangerous. Knowing that it was wise to stay on good terms with such a figure, he responded cheerfully, "Oh, Mr. Banks. I'm genuinely surprised that you came to see me personally. I'm truly honored. Please, take a seat." Zane nodded, settling beside the hospital bed with a smile, saying, "I'm so sorry to meet you under these circumstances. I've been quite busy lately, so I sent my children to visit you first, and I finally found the time to come myself. I didn't anticipate this situation. Please forgive me, Mr. Ito." Chapter 1829. I must say, Zane's acting abilities were quite impressive. If not for Yuhiko Ito's awareness of Zane's true character, one could easily be fooled by his cheerful and amicable demeanor. Despite feeling disgusted internally, Ito maintained his composure on the outside, forcing a smile as he said, "Mr. Banks, you are too kind. I had planned to personally greet you at the airport and arrange your accommodations while you are here. I didn't anticipate encountering so many unexpected events." Zane quickly replied, "Oh no, Mr. Ito, there's no need for such formality. The friendship between the Banks family and the Ito family goes back a long way. We will certainly continue to strengthen our cooperation and deepen our ties in the future. Why should we let minor issues hinder us?" Seeing Zane's insincere facade made Ito want to vomit his breakfast, but he could only nod and agree, saying, "Mr. Banks is correct. There's really no need to be overly formal." Feeling satisfied, Zane responded earnestly, "Mr. Ito, although the recent chaos in Tokyo has been distressing and has caused you significant trouble, I must point out a crucial fact. When everything settles down, the Ito family will emerge as the biggest beneficiary." Yuhiko Ito understood the implications of Zane's words. He recognized that beyond stating the facts, Zane was also hinting at his own interests. Currently, with his family embroiled in internal strife, Zane was positioning himself to gain from it all. In essence, Zane was subtly reminding Ito not to overlook the assistance the Banks family had provided. However, Ito was reluctant to casually owe such favors. Ultimately, the survival of the Ito family in this conflict wasn't truly reliant on Zane, but rather on Charlie. Let's not forget that without Charlie's intervention, Zane's children would not have survived either. If Charlie hadn't rescued Fitz and Zara, and Zane hadn't protected the remains of his children, the real murderer might never have been uncovered. This reality made Yuhiko Ito sigh deeply. "Oh, Mr. Banks, the Ito family has faced a perilous journey to come through this ordeal." As he spoke, he patted his thigh and lamented, "Look at my legs, they're completely ruined. If it weren't for my loyal servant Tanaka pushing me to leap from the overpass, I would have been stabbed to death." In this statement, Yuhiko Ito was effectively making a point to Zane. If he had survived, it had little to do with Zane or the Banks family. Then, Yuhiko continued, "And my daughter also faced a ninja ambush in Kyoto, but thankfully, a skilled master came to her rescue. Otherwise, I would truly be mourning the loss of a loved one." As he mentioned this, Yuhiko feigned curiosity and asked, "By the way, Mr. Banks, it seems your children were also saved by that mysterious master in Kyoto?" Hearing this, Zane's expression turned a bit somber. What he intended to convey earlier was to acknowledge Yuhiko Ito's success in eliminating Maki Takahashi and Ryoto Matsumoto, attributing much of the credit to the help of a stranger. Unexpectedly, the shrewd Yuhiko Ito had directly addressed the topic, implying that gratitude was unnecessary between them. Both owed their thanks to the enigmatic master, as their children could have faced dire consequences without that intervention. Though Zane felt a twinge of frustration, he couldn't argue with Ito's assertion. After all, it was indeed that mysterious individual who had saved his children. Zane had even inquired with his son and daughter about the identity of that remarkable person. Someone so capable, could they not be of use to him as well? However, Zara had informed him that this mysterious figure seemed indifferent towards her and her brother. Their primary concern was to assist Yuhiko Ito's daughter, Nanako, and they had pursued her attackers relentlessly. Chapter 1830. Rescue them, brother and sister, that's just a side note. The only clue I have is that he should be Chinese, but I lack further details. Initially, Zane hoped Zian could leave to investigate the clues about that individual. However, the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department, along with Japan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Homeland Security Department, now aimed to capture Zane's associates. Consequently, He had to abandon this plan and decided it was best for Zian to return home to avoid being caught by the Japanese authorities. Being apprehended would be as severe as facing execution. Even if not sentenced to death, life imprisonment would be inevitable, leaving no chance for a future. Thus, Zane had to put this plan on hold. Hearing Ito mention that person again, he intentionally asked, "Mr. Ito, it's said that this mysterious individual protects your daughter. Surely you must know him." Yuhiko Ito shook his head with a hint of regret. "I really wish I knew him, but sadly, he is far too enigmatic. I asked my daughter, but she has no idea who he is. If I did know, I would certainly want to enlist his help. With someone so powerful at your side, you'd never need to worry about safety again." Zane studied Yuhiko Ito for a moment, sensing he wasn't being dishonest. It seemed that Yuhiko really didn't know who the mysterious figure was. But why did he save Nanako Ito? Could it be that he is simply a noble hero? However, it feels odd for a Chinese person to come to Japan as a savior. Or perhaps he's an overseas Chinese residing in Japan. Unable to find a clear answer, Zane decided to move on. He looked at Yuhiko Ito earnestly and stated, "Mr. Ito, my purpose in coming here goes beyond just visiting you. I also wish to discuss potential cooperation and share a general idea." After expressing this, he continued, "Ocean shipping is a significant venture for the Banks family moving forward. While we pursue a global strategy, we place considerable importance on the Japanese market in East Asia. We aim to block business and establish a partnership with the Ito family. What are your thoughts on this, Mr. Ito?" Yuhiko Ito nodded gravely and replied, "The Ito family has long sought a collaboration with the Banks family concerning this business." When Zane heard this, a flicker of joy crossed his face as he thought, it seems that partnering with the Ito family might be a straightforward process. While Zane reveled in his thoughts of success, Yuhiko Ito was already considering a delaying tactic. Shifting the conversation, he spoke apologetically, "However, Mr. Banks, you can see my current health condition. The doctor has advised that I need to remain in the hospital for at least another 2 weeks. Moreover, even after being discharged, I will require several months of rest once I return home. For now, I may not have the capacity to concentrate on business operations. Therefore, whether this cooperation should proceed and how it could be implemented may take some time before I can offer you a definitive answer." Chapter 1831. Zane's expression darkened upon hearing Ito's proposal. He was clearly displeased with the direction Ito was suggesting. Yet, he understood that Yuhiko Ito had just undergone a significant amputation. To put it bluntly, the wounds were still fresh, and it was unrealistic to expect him to push forward with such a substantial collaboration at this moment. Furthermore, Ito's daughter appeared to be quite young, likely around the same age as Zane's own daughter, Zara. Given these circumstances, Zane found it challenging to make immediate decisions about their potential partnership. Thus, he remarked earnestly, "Mr. Ito, you really should focus on resting and recovering for now. Regarding the specifics of our collaboration, once you're discharged from the hospital, I will return. We can discuss the details then. How does that sound?" Yuhiko Ito nodded in agreement and smiled, saying, "Once my lower body heals, if Mr. Banks visits Tokyo, I will ensure we have a grand banquet in your honor." Zane offered a slight smile in response, replying, "I will look forward to it, Mr. Ito." Then he added, "By the way, Mr. Ito, there's one more thing I'd like to bring to your attention out of friendship." Yuhiko Ito quickly encouraged him, "Please, go ahead, Mr. Banks." Zane explained, "From what I've gathered, the Wade family from Eastcliff is also looking to follow our lead and venture into ocean shipping. If I'm not mistaken, they may reach out to you to discuss potential project collaboration." After a brief pause, Zane continued, "However, the Wade family's capabilities are significantly weaker than ours. I suggest you don't waste your time considering them. Instead, focus on your recovery, and when you're ready, we can discuss a comprehensive partnership with the Banks family. That would be the best approach." Yuhiko Ito smiled and replied, "To be honest, I have a good understanding of the Wade family. They haven't even started their ocean shipping business. They're merely trying to catch up now that the Banks family has made strides. It's unlikely they'll make any significant impact, so in my view, the Banks family is my top priority." Zane felt pleased and said, "Mr. Ito, you truly have a keen insight. The Wade family is merely trying to ride a wave without any real resources in this industry. They wouldn't even be able to approach the Ito family, let alone compete for China's domestic port resources, which we will dominate." Yuhiko Ito responded with a smile, "Mr. Banks, you can rest assured that I will not pursue any partnership with the Wade family. If it comes down to a choice between the Banks family and the Wade family, I will certainly choose you, Mr. Banks." Zane chuckled, "Oh, Mr. Ito, your words give me the confidence to return to China." Yuhiko Ito inquired, "When does Mr. Banks plan to head back to China?" Zane replied, "In the next couple of days. The private planes are currently restricted from taking off in Tokyo, so I'll wait for 2 days. If I'm still unable to get a takeoff permit by then, I'll book a civil flight back." Yuhiko Ito nodded, expressing his thoughts. "I've heard that Mr. Banks' previous actions were rather bold, which has drawn some criticism from the Tokyo authorities." Zane waved his hand dismissively, saying, "The Tokyo Metropolitan Police and the Department of Homeland Security are just barking dogs. Ryoto Matsumoto is a treacherous individual. I shudder to think of how many lives he would take if left unchecked. He's not just a threat to me, he jeopardizes public safety in Tokyo." Turning to Yuhiko Ito, Zane stated seriously, "Mr. Ito, you were directly affected by Matsumoto's actions. Had I not dealt with him, he might have sent people to the hospital to finish what he started. Do you have any idea how many lives he could take in Tokyo?" As Zane spoke with such conviction, Yuhiko Ito was taken aback by the audacity of this man. Internally, Ito thought, "Zane, you shameless person. Killing Matsumoto, his right-hand man, and even his brother is one thing, but wiping out his entire family? What is this? The saying about not harming the innocent comes from your Chinese ancestors, yet here you are, disregarding basic morals and justice. Are you implying that by destroying Matsumoto's family, you are somehow protecting me? Should I be grateful for your actions against Matsumoto's family? What a twisted logic." However, on the surface, Yuhiko Ito maintained his composure, expressing, "I truly appreciate Mr. Banks' efforts. Otherwise, I might still be facing countless dangers and threats." Chapter 1832. Zane nodded, a hint of arrogance in his demeanor, and remarked, "I hope the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department and the Japanese Homeland Security Department can grasp this reality. Sometimes, surgery is unavoidable. Leaving malignant elements unchecked will only hinder the entire city. I'm here to perform a precise surgical operation on Tokyo." Yuhiko Ito agreed internally but thought, "Damn, this Zane is really something. The more he talks, the more he embarrasses himself." Checking the time, Zane smiled and added, "Mr. Ito, considering your injuries, I won't take up more of your time. The nutritional supplements I brought are top-notch natural remedies. You should have someone assist you with them to speed up your recovery." He gestured with his right hand, saying, "Since we're both interested in deepening our cooperation, I'll wait for you to heal up so we can move forward together." Yuhiko Ito responded earnestly, "Absolutely. Let's keep the lines of communication open." "Great." Zane replied with a laugh. "In that case, I'll take my leave." Yuhiko Ito nodded, "Mr. Banks, feel free to go at your own pace. I won't be seeing you out." Zane quickly patted him on the shoulder, saying, "Mr. Ito, no need for formality. Make sure to rest and recover well." Turning to Emi Ito, Yuhiko instructed, "Emi, please get Mr. Banks one of those supplements." "Good brother." Zane stood, shook hands with Yuhiko Ito, and, accompanied by Emi Ito, made his way out of the ward. Meanwhile, Charlie and Nanako Ito had just arrived at the hospital and were waiting at the elevator entrance. Emi escorted Zane and Mr. Palmer to the elevator and said apologetically, "Mr. Banks, I must attend to my brother, so I can't accompany you further." Zane smiled and replied, "Ms. Ito, please go back and look after Mr. Ito." Emi nodded and bowed deeply, "Mr. Banks, travel safe." Zane waved as he stepped into the elevator. Once the elevator doors closed, Zane turned to Mr. Palmer, who had been quiet for a while, and asked, "What's your take on it? How does Yuhiko Ito feel?" Mr. Palmer pondered briefly before responding seriously, "Master, while Yuhiko Ito puts on a good front, He seems somewhat intimidated by you. Indeed, Zane agreed, it's likely due to the fate of the Matsumoto family. Reflecting on it, what I did was rather extreme. He waved his hand dismissively and continued, but I stand by my actions. I eliminated Matsumoto Manchu because he posed a threat to my children. If I hadn't acted, people would perceive me as weak, an easy target to manipulate. Mr. Palmer inquired, do you think Yuhiko Ito will hesitate to work with us because of this? Zane scoffed, let him heal for now. Once he's on the mend, we can approach him again. By then, we'll have a clearer path forward, whether it's cooperation or otherwise. Just then, the elevator chimed, signaling its arrival on the first floor. Mr. Palmer quickly stepped aside, saying respectfully, Master, after you. Chapter 1833. As the elevator doors slid open, Zane stepped forward. Charlie, noticing the approaching elevator, was about to gesture for Nanako Ito, who stood beside him, to go ahead. However, Zane had already exited. The moment he stepped out, Zane locked eyes with Charlie. Instantly, a slight frown creased Zane's forehead, stirred by an aura that was both familiar and foreign, igniting a sense of unease within him. Charlie, unfamiliar with the man before him, couldn't help but scrutinize him more closely, especially as he noticed the alertness and surprise in Zane's eyes. The man appeared to be in his early 50s, with an ordinary look and build, yet he was dressed opulently. There was an edge of hostility etched into his features, giving him the air of a ruthless master, and this impression was palpable in the charged atmosphere. With Nanako Ito beside him, Charlie didn't dwell on the stranger for long, and they moved into the elevator together. Just as the doors began to close, Zane halted abruptly and glanced back toward the elevator. Mr. Palmer, who stood nearby, inquired, Master, is something the matter? Zane sighed and replied, Weavered, that young man who just entered the elevator felt oddly familiar. Curious, Mr. Palmer asked, do you have acquaintances in Japan? I have many acquaintances, but I don't know any young people like him. The boy seemed to be around 26 or 27, roughly the same age as Fitz, maybe just a year or two older, Zane explained. Mr. Palmer nodded, that's about the same age as your son. Do you know him? No, I don't, Zane admitted. With a troubled expression, Zane continued, but he bears a striking resemblance to an old friend of mine. Intrigued, Mr. Palmer asked, Master, who is this old friend of yours? Zane's demeanor turned frosty as he asked, have you ever heard anyone mention Bruce? Mr. Palmer, still under 40, had been studying abroad when Charlie's father, Bruce, passed away. He was unaware of what had transpired in Eastcliff during that time. So he replied, Master, is this Bruce from the Wade family? Yes, Zane confirmed. As Zane reminisced, he couldn't help but picture Bruce's noble bearing. Bruce had been a strikingly handsome and charismatic figure, a true standout in Eastcliff. His exceptional abilities made him a force to be reckoned with, and Zane often felt overshadowed in Bruce's presence. Women of Eastcliff vied for Bruce's attention, each wanting to secure a future with him, captivated by his charm and status. Zane's wife, Deanna, the mother of Fitz and Zara, had been infatuated with Bruce. Despite Zane's relentless efforts to win her affection, Deanna had only eyes for Bruce. Even after Bruce became engaged, Deanna's devotion to him was unwavering. Zane once orchestrated a grand proposal that captivated Eastcliff, yet Deanna remained resolute in her refusal. In a crowd of onlookers, she had simply stated. The first sentence was, I'm sorry, I can't marry you. The second sentence was, because Bruce is not married after all. Chapter 1834. Bruce may have had a fiancé, but since they were not yet married, Deanna still clung to a flicker of hope and refused to let go. He proposed to a woman, yet she publicly declared she was waiting for someone else. Zane still recalls the peculiar embarrassment that ensued. From that moment, his resentment towards Bruce grew intensely. Eventually, Bruce married in Eastcliff, and that night, Deanna wept endlessly, isolating herself for an entire month. During this time, Zane brought flowers to Deanna every single day in an effort to see her. He persisted for 39 days, presenting 39 bouquets of roses, until he finally touched Deanna's heart. Weakened by grief, Deanna emerged from her solitude, confronting Zane, who stood outside her door with flowers in hand. She questioned Zane if she would ever forget Bruce, and Zane, gritting his teeth, promised he would marry her regardless. Soon after, they became engaged and married a month later. In the early days of their marriage, Zane was plagued by anxiety and fear each night. He dreaded the thought of his wife calling out Bruce's name in her dreams. His fears turned into reality just days after their wedding, as he often heard Deanna softly whimpering and crying out for Bruce while he lay half asleep. During this period, Zane found himself on the brink of collapse. However, everything changed with the birth of their eldest son, Fitz. Deanna finally redirected her focus from Bruce to their child, allowing Zane to finally find peace in his sleep. The sound of their son's cries at night became a soothing lullaby to him. Yet, while he could rest easy listening to his son, he struggled to ignore Deanna's quiet murmurs of Bruce's name in her sleep, as that name haunted him like a nightmare. The memories of past humiliation ignited his fury. Even after more than 20 years, and even with Bruce long gone, Zane couldn't let go of his resentment. Mr. Palmer noticed Zane's cold demeanor, clenched fists, and trembling teeth with surprise. Having known Zane for years, he recognized that such a demeanor indicated extreme anger. When he learned that Matsumoto was behind the kidnapping of Fitz and Zara, Zane's reaction was no different from now. Mr. Palmer couldn't help but wonder, what exactly did Bruce do to provoke such anger in the master? Curious, he asked, "Master, is that man similar to Bruce?" "Yes," Zane replied with a nod. "However, he carries a more subdued demeanor, perhaps a bit casually dressed. Bruce, back in the day, was full of flair, walking with an air of confidence that was truly remarkable." Mr. Palmer inquired further, "Is that kid we saw earlier a descendant of Bruce?" "Impossible," Zane stated coldly. "Bruce's lineage has long vanished, and their fate is uncertain. The Wade family has been unable to locate them, they likely perished long ago." As he spoke, Zane smirked darkly, mocking, "Back then, Bruce made enemies everywhere, clashing with the Rothschild family that dominated Europe and America. He attracted hostility from numerous individuals in China due to his sharp nature. There were countless people who wanted him dead." With a cigarette lit, Zane continued nonchalantly, "Though the kid bears a resemblance to him, I suspect he might just be Japanese, perhaps merely coincidentally similar." Mr. Palmer nodded slightly and asked, "Master, what should we do next? Return to the hotel or?" "I won't return to the hotel," Zane replied coldly. "If the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department fails to apprehend them, they'll likely find a way to embarrass and annoy me. It's best if we leave Tokyo as soon as possible." With that, Zane instructed, "Leave the hotel room as it is. Let's head north directly to Aomori Prefecture, the northernmost part of Honshu, Japan. We'll take a couple of days to relax in the hot springs." Chapter 1835. As Charlie rode the elevator upstairs, he couldn't shake the unsettling encounter he'd just had. The man he'd seen while exiting the elevator had looked at him with a hostile glare, even though Charlie was certain they didn't know each other. Initially, he had assumed that this stranger might be a hidden master, someone extraordinary. However, upon reflection, Charlie realized something felt off. The man lacked the unmistakable aura of a strong individual. Based on Charlie's own abilities, he concluded that the man was likely just an ordinary person. But he brushed off the thoughts as he stepped out of the elevator, following Nanako Ito to the ward where Yuhiko Ito was located. Inside the hospital room, Yuhiko Ito was berating his mother from his bed. He exclaimed to Emi Ito, "That guy Zane is nothing but a scheming coward. Just being around him makes my skin crawl." Emi Ito agreed, saying, "Zane really gives off a sinister vibe. The more friendly he appears, the more chilling it feels, especially when recalling what he did to the Matsumoto family. It sends shivers down my spine." As Charlie entered the room, he couldn't help but interject loudly, "Wait, was that Zane from the Banks family I just saw?" Both Yuhiko Ito and Emi Ito were taken aback, realizing that Charlie and Nanako had just walked in. Yuhiko Ito asked with curiosity, "Do you know Zane Banks, Mr. Wade?" Charlie's expression darkened, and his voice turned icy as he replied, "The man I saw coming from the elevator was Zane Banks?" Emi Ito clarified, I'm not sure who you encountered in the elevator, but Zane did just leave. Upon hearing this, Charlie immediately turned and dashed out. Zane Banks, the mastermind behind the Anti-Leaf Alliance. The thought ignited a wave of rage within Charlie. He was determined to confront Zane, even if it meant taking on his bodyguards in broad daylight, demanding to know why Zane was targeting his parents. Charlie envisioned making Zane pay, feeling a fierce desire for revenge. However, by the time he reached the hospital entrance, Zane had vanished. He was already in a car, speeding off to Aomori Prefecture. Charlie couldn't help but pound his fists in frustration at the hospital entrance. This was the closest he had been to his enemy since his parents' deaths. Yet, he had failed to recognize him. This realization frustrated him greatly. The Wade family had always had a contentious relationship with the Banks family, and Charlie had rarely seen Zane while growing up. Additionally, both families ranked among the elite, seldom appearing on wealth lists or in media coverage, leaving Charlie unfamiliar with Zane's appearance. At that moment, Charlie was overwhelmed with frustration. During his trip to Japan, he had encountered members of the Banks family multiple times, first by inadvertently saving Fitz and Zara, and now by nearly crossing paths with Zane. Charlie clenched his teeth, thinking that if he could turn back time a few minutes, the first thing he would do upon seeing Zane would be to smash his face in. Chapter 1836. It was unfortunate that, despite his impressive talents, he could not rewind the clock. Consequently, he could only look forward to the next opportunity. At the same time, he made a heartfelt promise: Zane, if I ever get the chance to confront you again, I will definitely not let you escape. Upon Charlie's return to the ward, Yuhiko Ito looked at him with surprise and asked, Mr. Wade, do you know Zane? Is there a connection? Why are you so affected by him? Both Emi Ito and Nanako Ito regarded Charlie with skepticism, eager for his response. Noticing their expressions, Charlie chuckled to himself and replied in mock anger, have you forgotten? I inadvertently saved his children. Given his wealth, he should have given me $10 billion. I didn't expect him to slip away. Yuhiko Ito was momentarily speechless. He had no doubt about the truth of Charlie's statement, for he believed that Charlie was always in good standing. His mother, known for her greed, would shamelessly resort to blackmail or worse for money. Thus, when he unintentionally rescued Fitz and Zara, it was out of character for him to ask for money. That simply wasn't Charlie. Upon hearing this, Nanako Ito couldn't help but laugh, saying, Charlie, you're too obsessed with money. Did you realize that when you heard Zane's name, you reacted as if he were your enemy? I didn't expect him to be just a creditor in your eyes. Charlie replied with a wry smile, it's a shame he got away, but it's not a big deal. Eventually, I will have the chance to settle this debt. He can't hide forever. Nanako Ito nodded and then addressed Yuhiko Ito, Oda-san, I brought 2 meals today. One is for you, and the other is for Tanaka-san. May I visit him? Yuhiko Ito nodded and replied, Tanaka is in the next ward. Go ahead and check on him. Nanako Ito turned to Charlie and asked, Charlie, are you coming with me to see him? Charlie had a good impression of Tanaka. He was indeed an exceptional servant, so he nodded and said, sure, let's go take a look. In the next ward, Koichi Tanaka was lying on his bed, engrossed in a book. As soon as he saw Nanako Ito and Charlie enter, he quickly set his book aside and greeted them respectfully, hello, Miss Ito. Nanako Ito smiled and approached with the lunchbox, saying, Tanaka-san, I brought you a meal from home. The chef made it just for you, please enjoy it while it's hot. Hiroshi Tanaka felt honored and replied, Miss, you shouldn't have gone through the trouble of bringing me food. This is truly too much. Nanako Ito responded earnestly, Tanaka-san, you saved my father's life. I'm very grateful. A meal is just a small token of my appreciation. Hiroshi Tanaka replied sincerely, Miss, your words are worth more than 10,000 lives. Nanako Ito added, Tanaka-san, if you need anything, just let my aunt know. She will do her best to help you. Please focus on recovering and get out of the hospital soon. Hiroshi Tanaka nodded repeatedly, saying gratefully, I understand, Mississippi. Thank you for your concern. After a moment, he asked tentatively, I took a wheelchair to visit the president's ward this morning, and I heard him say that Mr. Wade cured your injury? Nanako Ito confirmed, Charlie not only healed my injury but also saved my life. Tanaka turned to Charlie, expressing his gratitude, Mr. Wade, thank you so much. Feeling a bit down due to his missed opportunity with Zane, Charlie replied dismissively, you're welcome. Hiroshi Tanaka noticed Charlie's demeanor and asked, is something bothering you, Mr. Wade? Nanako Ito smiled charmingly and chimed in, oh, he's just upset because he missed out on $10 billion. Chapter 1837. Charlie offered a subtle smile to Nanako but chose not to elaborate further. After a pleasant conversation with Tanaka Hiroshi, Nanako apologized, saying, Tanaka-san, Charlie is heading back to Oris Hill tonight, and I need to join him for some shopping. I'll take my leave now and catch up with you later. Tanaka Hiroshi replied quickly, Miss, please don't worry about me. You and Mr. Wade should focus on your plans. No need to make a special trip to see me, it would be too much trouble. Nanako Ito smiled warmly. It's no trouble at all. We've known each other for so many years, so there's no need to be so formal. Hiroshi Tanaka nodded appreciatively before turning to Charlie with a serious expression. Mr. Wade, I won't be able to see you off tonight when you return home. Wishing you a safe journey. Charlie returned the sentiment with a slight smile. Thank you, Tanaka. I hope we can meet again. Absolutely, Mr. Wade. Until next time. After leaving Tanaka's hospital room, Nanako Ito accompanied Charlie to Ginza in Tokyo. It had been a few days since they arrived in Japan, and this was the first time they ventured out for shopping. Previously, during his last trip to Eastcliff, Charlie had purchased a set of Hermes luggage for his wife, Claire, so this time he decided to skip the luxury items. As they wandered through the jewelry section, Charlie spotted a stunning heart-shaped diamond ring from Tiffany's. The main diamond weighed 3 carats and boasted exceptional clarity. Though not overly large, its exquisite design and beautiful heart-shaped cut immediately captured his attention. Reflecting on the time since his marriage, Charlie realized he had never given Claire a proper wedding ring. He decided to buy this diamond ring as a special gift for her. After consulting with the clerk, he learned that the price of the ring was around 800,000, which he found reasonable. Charlie resolved to purchase the ring. Nanako Ito, unable to hide her curiosity, inquired, Charlie, this ring is for your wife, isn't it? Yes, Charlie confirmed with a nod. She's been by my side for so many years, and I've never given her a ring. Nanako sighed. You're so thoughtful towards your wife. Charlie smiled, prepared to respond modestly, but was interrupted by the salesperson, who politely asked, Sir, do you know the size of your wife's ring finger? This question caught Charlie off guard. I'm not sure about the size, he admitted. The salesman explained, if you don't know the size, it could complicate things when choosing a ring. I suggest you call your wife to find out her size, and we can help you adjust the ring to fit her perfectly. Charlie hesitated, contemplating that calling Claire would ruin the surprise he intended. Just then, Nanako Ito suggested softly, Charlie, why not compare my hand to your wife's? With that, she extended her hands, spreading her fingers in front of him. Charlie examined her hand closely and remarked in surprise, Nanako, your hand seems similar to my wife's. Would you mind trying it on for me? Nanako nodded eagerly. The salesperson then handed the ring to Charlie, saying, Sir, please allow this lady to help you try it on. Without overthinking, Charlie took the ring in one hand while gently guiding Nanako Ito's right wrist with the other, carefully slipping the ring onto her finger. In that moment, Nanako felt as if she were in a dream, completely enchanted. Although she understood she was merely helping Charlie find the right ring for his wife, the experience of him placing a diamond ring on her finger left her exhilarated. She thought to herself, if this is a dream, I wish I could stay in it forever. Chapter 1838. As the ring slipped over her knuckles and settled onto her finger, tears welled up in Nanako's eyes. She quickly bowed her head, wanting to hide her emotions from Charlie. Her feelings for him ran deep, but she was determined not to burden him with her vulnerability. Deep down, Nanako understood that Charlie's visit to Kyoto was not solely driven by affection. Instead, it stemmed from a sense of empathy and pity for her situation. She could relate to Charlie's feelings. As a fellow martial artist, she recognized the bond of empathy that connects individuals who share similar experiences. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. It's akin to a racer witnessing a fellow competitor suffer a devastating accident. His empathy for that racer would be more profound than that of an everyday observer. Likewise, a soldier witnessing his comrades injured in battle would inevitably feel a strong sense of empathy for them. Charlie must have felt something similar for her. Charlie had seen her endure injuries during competitions, possibly even needing to be pulled from the field by an ambulance. His concern for her must have grown stronger as a result. Moreover, he had the means to heal her, which is why he took the time to visit her in Kyoto, to help mend her wounds. Thus, Nanako realized that although Charlie treated her with kindness, much of it stemmed from his sympathy and understanding. For a girl who held deep feelings for him, the last thing she desired was pity. In fact, she longed for love above all else, rejecting anything less than that. At that moment, Charlie was oblivious to Nanako's inner turmoil. His focus was on her fingers. Noticing that the ring seemed slightly too large, he gently removed it, confirming with the salesperson, "I'm sorry, but it appears to be a bit small." "Of course, sir," the salesman replied, taking the ring to make the necessary adjustments. At that moment, a wave of sadness washed over Nanako. She had known all along that the ring would eventually be taken off, but the reality of it stung her heart like a knife. Yet, she didn't want Charlie to see her distress. As he engaged with the salesman, she quickly exclaimed, "Charlie, I need to use the bathroom." Without waiting for his reply, she rushed away, tears brimming in her eyes, too overwhelming for her to contain. She didn't want Charlie to witness her tears, as she aimed to keep his focus intact. She had never intended to disrupt his life or his marriage, especially after all he had done for her. As she walked away, her heart echoed with thoughts. Tonight, Charlie will leave Japan, returning to his family, to his wife. Who knows when he will come back again? These hours are the last moments I will spend with Charlie. I must keep my emotions in check and avoid placing any burden on him. Chapter 1839. When Nanako Ito returned from the restroom, her face showed no signs of tears, though her eyes were slightly red. She had splashed cold water on her face, making her expression appear more natural. Back in the store, Nanako Ito smiled warmly and asked Charlie, "Charlie, have you made the adjustments? Would you like me to try it on again?" Charlie returned her smile and nodded. "Could I trouble you with that?" Nanako Ito smiled gently and replied, "No need to be so formal." As she spoke, she extended her right hand with a grin and encouraged, "Come on. Let's give it another go." Charlie, not overthinking it, took the adjusted ring and placed it back on the ring finger of her right hand. This time, the fit was perfect. The shank felt just right, neither too tight nor too loose, appearing almost like a natural part of her hand. Intrigued, Nanako Ito turned her right hand to catch the light and closely examined the diamond ring. Although it wasn't as extravagant as the multi-million-dollar rings worn by some socialites, it possessed a distinct allure. It was simple, elegant, beautiful, and deeply meaningful. Charlie admired the ring on Nanako Ito's hand, appreciating its beauty. He knew his wife wasn't interested in ostentatious jewelry, and this ring perfectly suited her serene demeanor. His thoughts drifted to Claire, and he shifted his focus from the ring to Nanako Ito's face. Honestly, while Claire might score an 80 or even a 90 in terms of tranquility, Nanako Ito was a perfect 100. Thus, it seemed this ring was a more fitting representation of her character. However, Charlie chose not to dwell on this. Nanako Ito wore the ring, delighting in its beauty with a hint of melancholy, before finally removing it and handing it back to Charlie. "Charlie, if it's suitable, could you ask the salesman to wrap it up?" "Absolutely," Charlie replied, seeing that the ring was indeed a perfect fit. He turned to the salesperson and said, "Hello, could you please help me wrap this ring?" "Of course, sir," the salesperson chimed in, clearly pleased. While Tiffany is a well-known brand, most diamond rings typically range from $10,000 to $20,000, and it's rare to find buyers for rings priced above that. Sometimes, a week might pass without a sale. Charlie's choice, however, was akin to purchasing a ring valued at over $100,000, a limited selection sold each year. Consequently, the salesperson treated Charlie as a valued VIP customer, meticulously wrapping the ring and saying, "Sir, if there's nothing else you need, please follow me to the cashier for checkout." "No rush," Charlie replied. "I'd like to look at bracelets as well." The ring symbolized love between partners, so when he bought it for his wife, he naturally couldn't select something similar for his mother-in-law. Therefore, Charlie intended to find a bracelet for Elaine, aiming for a price range of $200,000 to $300,000, which would surely delight her. A bracelet in that price range would be enough to make Elaine so happy that she wouldn't be able to sleep. Upon hearing that Charlie was interested in a bracelet, the salesperson immediately responded, "Sir, please hold on for a moment. I'll bring over the person in charge of the bracelet section to assist you with some recommendations." In their store, each salesperson had their own designated counter, and this particular one was focused on diamond rings, so another staff member would guide Charlie in the bracelet area. Chapter 1840. Charlie readily agreed. Shortly thereafter, the salesman called over another young woman and said, "Ma'am, this VIP would like to see the bracelets. Could you assist him?" Recognizing Charlie's wealth, the girl beamed and replied, "Sir, please follow me." Nanako Ito quickly interjected, "Charlie, do you still want me to try the bracelet on for you?" Charlie smiled and responded, "I'm planning to purchase the bracelet for my mother-in-law. She is a bit on the heavier side, so I won't trouble you with that." Nanako Ito smiled and said, "Then you can look at it for yourself first. I'd like to check out the ring, if that's all right." Charlie nodded, "Of course. Take a look. I'll head over to the bracelet section." Nanako Ito responded with a sweet smile, "Okay." As Charlie moved toward the bracelet display, Nanako Ito leaned in to whisper to the salesperson of the ring, "Excuse me, is the ring I tried earlier still available?" The salesperson nodded and replied, "Yes, we have 3 of those rings in stock. We've sold 2, so there's 1 left. Would you like to purchase it now?" Nanako Ito was thrilled and whispered back, "It's not convenient for me to pay right now. Could you hold it for me? I'll arrange for someone to come by and pay later, and please help me resize the ring to the size I tried on." The salesperson replied politely, "Absolutely, miss, please tell me your name. When your guest arrives, they can mention your name." Nanako Ito beamed. "My name is Ito, and the person will let you know that it's for Miss Ito." The salesperson nodded. "All right, Miss Ito." Nanako Ito playfully blinked and added softly, "Please don't mention this to the gentleman accompanying me. Keep it a secret." Though a bit puzzled, the salesperson nodded earnestly. "Don't worry, I won't disclose it to anyone." "That's great." Meanwhile, Charlie was browsing the bracelet counter, taking in the various styles on display. Most of the bracelets were simple and understated, but one particularly caught his eye, a rose gold bracelet adorned with diamonds, exuding luxury. Knowing his mother-in-law Elaine well, Charlie understood that she appreciated items that showcased wealth at first glance. Items that sparkle, especially those encrusted with small diamonds, are sure to appeal to her taste. The bracelet Charlie chose for Elaine was priced at approximately $250,000, a sum that, while significant, was quite manageable for him. After making his selection, he asked the salesperson to wrap up the bracelet and to combine the payment with the ring. At that moment, Nanako Ito had already coordinated the ring purchase and sent a message to an assistant from her family to help with the payment. Once everything was arranged, she approached Charlie with a smile and asked, "Charlie, have you made your selection?" Charlie nodded. "The payment has been processed. By the way, Nanako, why are you in such high spirits?" Noticing a noticeable lift in Nanako Ito's demeanor, Charlie was curious about her happiness. Nanako Ito playfully stuck out her tongue and blinked. "It's a secret. I can't tell you, or you'll just laugh at me." Charlie chuckled lightly. "How could I possibly laugh?" Nervously, Nanako Ito replied, "I'm just too shy to share." Charlie shrugged. "If you don't want to share, I won't press you." Chapter 1841. After parting ways with Tiffany, Nanako Ito joined Charlie once more as they strolled through the bustling shops of Ginza. In an effort to avoid showing favoritism, Charlie purchased a luxurious boss suit for his older partner, Jacob. Jacob now spent his days mingling with members of the Calligraphy and Painting Association, where he had risen to the rank of the number 2 figure. His reputation had certainly grown. Moreover, the association he was affiliated with often collaborated and exchanged ideas with Matilda's senior college. By buying a suit for Jacob, Charlie aimed to help him look more vibrant and energetic, enhancing his standing and presence. Additionally, Charlie picked up various small accessories and trinkets here and there. At 3:30 p.m., with only about 2 hours left before his flight to Osaka, Charlie reminded Nanako Ito, "Nanako, it's almost time. I need to head to the airport." Without hesitation, Nanako Ito replied, "Charlie, I'll take you." Charlie responded, "I need to drive and leave my car at the airport. If you come with me, how will you get back?" "That's not a problem," Nanako Ito insisted. "I can arrange for someone to pick me up from the airport. Don't worry about me." Charlie questioned, "Isn't that too much trouble for you?" "Not at all," Nanako Ito said earnestly. "Charlie, I really want to take you to the airport. I would love to accompany you to Osaka and back to Oris Hill, but my family situation is quite complicated right now, making it hard for me to leave. So please, let me take you to the airport." Moved by her words, Charlie replied, "All right, let's drive to the airport together. You should also call your family and arrange for someone to pick you up." "Yes." Nanako Ito agreed cheerfully. "Don't worry, I'll take care of it." "Sounds good." With that, Charlie decided not to argue any further. They both got into the car and headed to Tokyo Airport. This trip marked Charlie's first journey back. As they drove, Nanako Ito couldn't shake her feelings of reluctance. Since their first meeting in Oris Hill, she had developed strong feelings for Charlie. Meeting him again in Japan only deepened her affection. With their impending separation, she felt anxious about whether she would have another opportunity to see him. She sensed that Charlie had helped lift a significant weight off her heart. Nanako Ito was quite perceptive. She understood that Charlie's visit to Japan was likely due to his own injury, and that he empathized with her situation. It also happened that she possessed the medicine that could cure his ailment, prompting him to travel to Kyoto in search of healing. In that moment, she felt a profound loneliness and wondered to herself, "Now that my injury is healed, will Charlie still be able to find relief in the future?" This thought brought her sadness. In her heart, she wished she could sacrifice more to remain in Japan for Charlie, but she knew that was simply not feasible. Chapter 1842. As Nanako Ito's thoughts raced, Charlie had already navigated the car to the airport. Once he parked in the lot, he stepped out with Nanako Ito by his side. Instead of hurrying away, he took a moment to kneel down and place the car key atop the front tire. Surprised, Nanako Ito asked, "Charlie, what are you doing?" With a smile, Charlie replied, "I'm leaving the key here with a friend, otherwise, it would just have to accompany me back to China." Nanako looked on with suspicion. "Isn't that risky? If someone discovers it, they could just drive away with the car." Charlie chuckled. "It's unlikely anyone will notice it here. There are countless cars around. Who would bother to crouch down and check someone else's tires?" Continuing, he added, "I'll inform the key's owner when I get a chance. Once they know, retrieving the car will be a breeze." Nanako Ito smiled and nodded. "You're quite clever. I would have never thought of such a solution." Charlie responded with a grin, "Honestly, I'm just trying to save some money. Mailing the key back to China can get quite expensive." Suddenly, Nanako laughed. "Charlie, with your situation, I doubt you're short on funds. My father alone has given you $4.5 billion, and your Oracle Pharmaceuticals is booming again. Why worry about saving money?" Charlie smiled gently. "It's not strictly about saving, it's about living wisely. We should spend what's necessary and avoid wasting what isn't." Nanako nodded earnestly. "Thank you, Charlie, this has been enlightening." Charlie replied, "I'm not a great teacher, I merely share my simple thoughts, which are quite basic. Nanako said sincerely, while the logic is straightforward, I've never really considered it before. In my previous position, spending a bit more didn't matter much. However, now that my father wants me to take over Ito Company, Limited, I must adjust my perspective on money. Only by thinking like you can I help the family business thrive. Seeing her serious demeanor, Charlie smiled warmly. I have no doubt that Ito Company, Limited will flourish under your leadership. Nanako nodded softly. Thank you, Charlie, for your kind words. I hope to meet those expectations. Charlie glanced at her encouragingly. All right, it's almost time for me to check in. How will you be getting back? Nanako replied, I've asked the family assistant to come pick me up. Checking the time, she quickly added, she might take a bit longer, so let me walk you to the security checkpoint. Charlie agreed, and together they left the parking area, heading toward the airport departure hall. At that moment, a striking woman entered the departure hall. With delicate features infused with a hint of heroism and an air of coldness, she commanded attention. This woman stood at about 175 centimeters tall, boasting long, slender legs. She wore a fitted black leather jacket, sleek black leather pants, and high-top black boots. Her long black hair was styled into a ponytail that cascaded down to her waist. Exuding beauty, her icy expression provided a stark contrast. As she entered the airport, she confidently walked straight into the VIP security check lane. The male staff member responsible for verifying boarding information found himself momentarily spellbound by her presence. After a few seconds, he regained his composure and said, somewhat flustered, Miss, may I please see your ID and boarding pass? Without a word, the woman handed over her identification. The staff member glanced at it, noting the name inscribed on her passport, Zian Banks. Chapter 1843. Currently, in order to identify the murderer of the Matsumoto family, Tokyo Airport had intensified its exit inspections. However, due to limited manpower, it was impossible to thoroughly screen every passenger. Although Zian presented a Chinese passport, her boarding pass was for Osaka, indicating that she was not leaving Japan. As a result, the staff did not escalate the matter to their supervisor. The staff member silently repeated Zian's name in his mind, finding it strangely pleasant, though he couldn't quite explain why he felt that way. Zian noticed the staff member staring blankly at her passport, and her first instinct was to wonder whether her true identity had been exposed. However, she quickly dismissed the thought. First, the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department only knew that a hidden master from China was responsible for Matsumoto Manchu's death, but they had no concrete details. They also did not know exactly who had wiped out the Matsumoto family. Moreover, Japan's close proximity to China meant there was a constant flow of tourists, overseas Chinese, and businesspeople between the two countries. It would be nearly impossible for the police to narrow down suspects in such a short time. After a quick assessment, Zian concluded that the staff member was simply stunned by her appearance and slow to react. She asked coolly, "Is there something wrong with my passport?" The staff member nodded absent-mindedly and replied, "Very pretty." The moment the words left his mouth, he realized his mistake. Flustered, he hurriedly handed the passport back to Zian with both hands and apologized, "Miss Banks, I'm very sorry. I didn't mean that." Zian ignored his apology and asked coldly, "So, can I pass?" "Oh, of course," the staff member replied. Feeling the pressure of Zian's overwhelming presence, he broke into a cold sweat, quickly stamped her boarding pass, and returned it with exaggerated respect. As Zian turned and walked away, the staff member watched her retreating figure in awe and muttered under his breath, This is the aura of royalty. I've only ever seen women like her in TV dramas and anime." While he was still lost in his thoughts, Zian had already arrived at the security screening area. At the same time, members of the Banks family were scattered throughout Tokyo. Since they could not leave openly, they purchased ordinary tickets to Osaka under the guise of tourists. Zian had chosen the 5:40 p.m. flight. Once in Osaka, she would regroup with the other Banks family members and return home aboard a private jet temporarily provided by Highland Falls. At that moment, Charlie arrived at the VIP security checkpoint. Before entering, he turned to Nanako Ito beside him and said, "Nanako, you've already gone out of your way to see me off. I'll head through security now. You should go back." Nanako Ito nodded reluctantly and said earnestly, "I wish you a safe journey. Please let me know when you land." "Of course," Charlie replied with a faint smile. "Take care of yourself too." With reddened eyes, Nanako Ito answered softly, "Thank you for your concern. I will." Charlie nodded, feeling both reluctant and relieved. He felt reluctant because Nanako Ito was truly an outstanding woman. Aside from her nationality, she was flawless. If this was their final farewell, then seeing her again in the future would be difficult, which stirred a quiet sadness in his heart. At the same time, he felt relieved. This trip to Japan had helped him resolve a lingering knot in his heart, one that was deeply connected to Nanako Ito. Chapter 1844. From the very beginning, Nanako Ito had insisted on challenging Aurora. Aurora, on the other hand, had experienced a dramatic surge in strength after taking the rejuvenation pills. In the end, the match resulted in Aurora brutally injuring Nanako in the ring, leaving a wound that carved itself deeply into Charlie's heart. Charlie was conflicted. He felt deep sympathy for Nanako Ito, yet he also admired her unyielding will. At the same time, he carried a trace of guilt, knowing that it was Nanako's own struggle that had indirectly pushed Aurora from someone far beneath her to someone who completely surpassed her. Now that Charlie had personally treated her injuries, the heaviness in his heart had eased somewhat. He had not only saved her life but had also significantly strengthened her cultivation, which helped wash away his lingering guilt. With the burden of distress and guilt lifted, all that remained in his heart was appreciation for Nanako Ito. With a calm smile, Charlie said, "If that's the case, I'll be going now." "Okay," Nanako Ito replied, nodding firmly despite the sadness in her eyes. She added softly, "Charlie, I wish you luck, peace, and good health." In ancient Japan, martial arts were revered above all else, and Bushido represented the pinnacle of that reverence. Thus, in Japanese culture, wishing someone success in their martial path was not merely a polite gesture, it was a profound blessing, symbolizing the hope that the person would become invincible. It was considered the highest form of goodwill. Charlie was slightly startled by Nanako Ito's words. He immediately clasped his fist in respect and said solemnly, "Thank you, Miss Nanako. We'll meet again." After that, he cast one last lingering glance at her before turning and walking toward the security checkpoint. The moment Charlie turned away, tears streamed down Nanako Ito's face. She stared at his retreating figure, tears falling like rain. She desperately wanted to call out to him, hoping he would turn back so she could see him just once more. But she hesitated. She was afraid that if he turned around and saw her crying, he might misunderstand and think she was deliberately displaying her vulnerability. Suppressing the urge to call out, she remained where she was, watching him disappear through the door before finally turning to leave herself. At that very moment, Charlie suddenly looked back. That single glance struck him like lightning, freezing him in place. He had intended to wave goodbye, but instead, he saw Nanako, who had been smiling just moments ago, now crying uncontrollably. In that instant, something shattered in the softest part of his heart. If that feeling had to be described in two words, they would be heartbreak. Nanako Ito had not expected Charlie to look back again. At that moment, as the eldest daughter of the Ito family and a woman raised under strict traditional values, she lost all restraint. Overcome by emotion, she ran toward Charlie, tears streaming freely, and threw herself into his arms, clutching him tightly. Before Charlie could fully react, she rose onto her toes and kissed him for the first time, her lips cold, salty from her tears, as they pressed firmly against his without hesitation. Chapter 1845. Charlie first felt the gentle, cold touch of Nanako's lips against his, followed by a faint bitterness spreading across his mouth. Deep down, he knew that taste well, it was Nanako's tears. In that moment, his heart was filled with both reluctance and helplessness. After a few seconds, their lips parted. Nanako Ito lifted her head, her eyes red and shimmering with tears, and said in a choking voice, "Charlie, don't forget me." Charlie nodded solemnly and replied, "Don't worry. I won't forget." With a serious expression, Nanako Ito continued, "If you ever need my help in the future, promise me you'll tell me." Charlie answered without hesitation, "All right. And you should do the same." Nanako Ito's tears slowly turned into a smile as she said, "Then go, Charlie. If you miss your flight again, you really won't make it." Looking at her gently, Charlie said, "Nanako, this isn't goodbye forever." "Right," she replied immediately. "You'll come back someday." This time, Charlie turned around and did not look back. He didn't want to see Nanako Ito crying again. Suppressing the turmoil in his heart, he focused straight ahead and walked into the security checkpoint. Nearby passengers were captivated by Nanako Ito's beauty. Many subconsciously covered their mouths as they watched her cry, their eyes following Charlie's disappearing figure with deep emotion. At that moment, several men couldn't help but feel envious. "How the hell does that guy have such a beautiful woman crying for him?" one whispered. "And he didn't even look back. That's brutal," another muttered. "If it were me, I'd turn around, run back, and swear I'd never leave her," someone else said bitterly. Nanako Ito, however, was completely unaware of the conversations around her. Even long after Charlie had vanished from sight, she stood there motionless, lost in emotions she couldn't express. Suddenly, her phone rang. She answered, and a woman's voice came through the line, "Miss, I've arrived at the airport entrance." "Where are you?" Nanako Ito quickly wiped away her tears and replied, "Wait a moment. I'll be there shortly." After hanging up, she turned her head and looked toward the security checkpoint one last time. After confirming that Charlie was truly gone, she finally turned around and slowly walked out of the airport. Outside the terminal, 3 black Rolls-Royces were parked neatly in a row. As soon as Nanako Ito stepped out, the co-driver of the middle Rolls-Royce got out and greeted her respectfully. "Miss, you're here." Nanako nodded slightly, and the door to the back seat was opened for her. After getting into the car, Nanako turned to the co-driver and asked, "Kawana, did you get the ring I asked for?" "Yes," the woman replied immediately. She was Kawana Hijui, a senior assistant of the Ito family. She promptly took out a Tiffany jewelry box and handed it to Nanako. Nanako Ito's eyes lit up as she carefully opened the box. Inside lay a diamond ring identical to the one Charlie had asked her to try on. Chapter 1846. The 2 rings were identical, not only in style but also in size. Even the shank size was exactly the same. The moment Nanako Ito saw the ring, her heart overflowed with happiness, as if Charlie had personally given it to her. Seeing how much she cherished it, Kawana Hijui couldn't help but say in surprise, "Miss, I didn't expect you to like a brand like Tiffany. It's rather ordinary. These rings aren't particularly expensive, and high-quality diamonds are hard to come by." Kawana's words weren't wrong. A diamond ring priced under 1 million is generally targeted at the middle to upper class. For truly wealthy individuals, such rings often don't even register. Among Europe, America, Japan, and South Korea's elite circles, diamonds are highly favored. Some are extraordinarily pure, with cuts that qualify them as top-tier stones, easily worth 10 million or more. These are the diamonds the truly wealthy invest in, often custom-made into exclusive jewelry. As a result, it's common for members of the ultra-rich to wear diamond rings worth tens of millions. By comparison, affluent Chinese individuals tend to favor a wider variety of gemstones, particularly jade. Top-quality imperial green jade can be staggeringly expensive. A single bracelet can easily be worth tens or even hundreds of millions. For the wealthy, such jewelry not only symbolizes status but also carries immense appreciation value. The Ito family is one of Japan's wealthiest families, and Nanako Ito is the only daughter of the family head. Her fondness for such a modest diamond ring truly baffled Kawana. Holding the ring lovingly, Nanako Ito said softly, "Kawana, some things can't be measured by money. This ring may not mean much to you, but to me, its value is immeasurable." Unable to resist, she slid the ring onto her ring finger. As she looked at it, a radiant smile bloomed across her face. Kawana Hijui exclaimed in alarm, "Miss, the ring finger is meant for wedding rings. If others see you wearing it there, they'll think you're married." Nanako suddenly realized the implication. As an unmarried woman, wearing a ring on that finger would indeed cause misunderstandings. Still, her fondness for the ring did not fade in the slightest. She quickly removed it and carefully put it back into the box, then stuck out her tongue playfully at Kawana Hijui. "It's fine. I just wanted to try it on. I won't wear it outside." Kawana nodded and asked, "Miss, where are we heading next?" Nanako Ito replied, "To the hospital. I'll accompany my father." "Understood." At that moment, Charlie had already passed through security and entered the VIP lounge with his passport and boarding pass. There was still nearly an hour before departure and about half an hour before boarding. The lounge was quiet, and Charlie easily found a seat. Just as he sat down, a beautiful waitress approached and asked politely, "Sir, would you like something to drink?" Still immersed in thoughts of Nanako Ito, Charlie waved his hand absent-mindedly. "No, thank you." The waitress nodded and said, "If you need anything, please let me know." "All right," Charlie replied. As he reached for his phone to call Isaac Cameron, his sharp hearing caught a soft female voice nearby, speaking on the phone. "To avoid unnecessary complications, inform the crew that we'll be staying overnight at Highland Falls and returning to Eastcliff tomorrow." Chapter 1847. Zian had initially planned for everyone to scatter to Osaka and then take a private jet from Highland Falls directly back to Eastcliff. However, she soon realized that if the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department failed to apprehend her and the other members of the Banks family, they would inevitably review past exit records. Under such circumstances, a direct flight from Osaka to Eastcliff would stand out as an obvious red flag. As a result, Zian decided to first fly from Osaka to Highland Falls. In Japan, authorities only have the jurisdiction to inspect flight information related to their own territory. In theory, they can scrutinize every detail of flights departing from Japan. However, once she flew from Highland Falls to Eastcliff, it would be considered a purely domestic flight outside Japan's jurisdiction. This would effectively cut off all investigative leads for the Japanese authorities. Logically, Zian would never make a rookie mistake like being overheard during a phone call. She deliberately chose a secluded corner of the VIP lounge, ensuring no one was within 5 meters of her. Moreover, she kept her voice down to a whisper throughout the call. Based on her experience, she was confident that at such a low volume, no one could hear her from more than 3 meters away, unless they were standing uncomfortably close. Furthermore, she hadn't revealed any critical information. She merely mentioned changing the plan to fly to Highland Falls first before returning to Eastcliff. What she didn't know was that Charlie, seated several meters away, heard every word clearly. Charlie instantly deduced that this woman was connected to the Banks family. The logic was simple: the heightened exit restrictions in Tokyo were directly tied to the Banks family's involvement in the Matsumoto incident. Anyone attempting to leave Japan while deliberately obscuring their movements was almost certainly linked to them. More importantly, her mention of flying to Highland Falls before returning to Eastcliff confirmed that Eastcliff was her final destination. Eastcliff was the Banks family's stronghold. That alone was enough to prove her identity. After ending the call, Zian slipped her phone back into her pocket, leaned into her seat, and closed her eyes to rest. Charlie observed her from a distance. His first impression was her stunning beauty, but the icy sharpness in her features quickly gave him a second, far more unsettling feeling. Thanks to the apocalyptic book, Charlie's perception was exceptionally sharp, allowing him to sense things far beyond ordinary people. From Zian's body, he detected a faint but unmistakable aura of bloodshed, a presence he rarely encountered in normal individuals. It was enough to tell him that her hands were stained with blood. She was almost certainly a killer in the service of the Banks family. Judging by her conversation, it also seemed that other operatives from the Banks family were planning to escape Japan via private jet from Osaka. Without hesitation, Charlie pulled out his phone and sent a WeChat message to Isaac Cameron. "Isaac, check all private jets flying out of Osaka tonight." Isaac Cameron didn't ask any follow-up questions and immediately began investigating. Although his influence in Japan was limited, gathering this level of intelligence was still well within his capabilities. Chapter 1848. Civil aviation information is generally not classified. Even the routes of private jets are accessible through airport dispatch systems and personnel records. Because of this, Isaac Cameron was able to quickly gather the relevant data and report back to Charlie. According to Isaac's findings, there were 4 private jets scheduled to depart from Osaka to Highland Falls that night. 2 of them were small business jets with limited seating, accommodating roughly 10 passengers each. Considering the number of Banks family members still in Japan, Charlie deemed it highly unlikely that they would use such small aircraft and immediately ruled them out. That left 2 remaining private jets, both modified Airbus A320s capable of carrying 40 to 50 passengers. From this, Charlie concluded that whichever Banks family members were leaving Osaka that night would almost certainly be aboard one of these 2 A320s. He instructed Isaac Cameron to dig deeper into the details of those aircraft. Both jets were registered in China. One belonged to a domestic private airline that primarily operated as a high-end travel agency specializing in luxury charter services. The plane had returned from Shenzhen City just the day before, having transported a tour group of 40 people, and was scheduled to pick up another group that same day for a return flight to Shenzhen. The second jet was registered under a real estate company based in China Shipping. It had arrived in Osaka from China Shipping earlier that day and was originally scheduled to fly from Osaka directly to Eastcliff. However, its flight plan had been abruptly altered, and it had received clearance to fly from Osaka to Highland Falls instead. The moment Charlie saw this information, he knew without a doubt that this aircraft had been arranged by the Banks family. As he pieced everything together, a chilling thought surfaced in his mind. A cold smile slowly formed on his lips. He sent a few more instructions to Isaac Cameron, then leaned back in his seat and closed his eyes, appearing calm and relaxed. 20 minutes later, a gentle announcement echoed through the lounge. Priority boarding for your flight has now begun. Esteemed first-class passengers, please proceed to the gate if you wish to board early. Charlie nodded slightly and stood up. At the same time, he noticed Xian rising from her seat as well. So this female assassin from the Banks family is on the same flight as me, he thought. Stretching casually, Charlie picked up his small suitcase and exited the VIP lounge just ahead of Xian. At the boarding gate, he presented his boarding pass and was allowed to board before the economy passengers. Since the flight from Tokyo to Osaka was only about an hour long, the aircraft had limited first-class seating, just 8 seats in total. Charlie's seat was by the window in the second row on the right. A flight attendant offered to help with his luggage, but Charlie politely declined and placed it himself in the overhead compartment. Just as he settled into his seat, Xian boarded along with several other first-class passengers. The moment he saw her, Charlie instinctively wanted to turn away and avoid eye contact. But he quickly realized that doing so would be a mistake. A seasoned killer like Xian would possess extremely sharp awareness. Coupled with her striking beauty, she was bound to attract attention from men. If Charlie deliberately avoided looking at her, it might raise suspicion. So instead, he let his gaze linger openly on her, his expression filled with surprise and admiration, like a man genuinely stunned by her beauty and thrilled to share the same flight. Xian noticed his stare. She glanced at him briefly, then looked away, a flash of disdain crossing her eyes. Humph, she sneered inwardly. Just another idiot who loses his tongue when he sees a pretty woman. Chapter 1849. Although Xian scoffed inwardly at Charlie's performance, his outward demeanor caused her to lower her guard slightly. She moved closer and took the seat beside him. After sitting down, Xian quietly observed Charlie for a while. This wasn't because she suspected anything about him, but rather due to her instinctive caution. Whenever she entered a new environment, her first priority was always to understand it thoroughly and gather any useful information. As she studied him, she noted that Charlie was undeniably handsome and carried a certain charm. However, whenever she caught his direct gaze or noticed her own reflection, it made her feel faintly uncomfortable. Breaking the silence, Xian turned to Charlie with a smile and asked, "Sir, are you Chinese?" Charlie was momentarily startled that this female assassin from the Banks family would take the initiative to speak to him. He pretended to be surprised and replied, "Beauty, how did you know I'm Chinese? This isn't even a flight to China." Xian smiled faintly and answered seriously, "There's a clear difference between Japanese boys and Chinese boys. For example, Japanese boys usually shave their eyebrows, and their hairstyles and clothing styles are very different. Charlie chuckled. You're very observant, beauty. Xian nodded and asked, which part of China are you from? Charlie replied casually, the southern region. Oh? Xian raised her eyebrows slightly and smiled. The southern region is a wonderful place. There's a saying, heaven is above and Eastcliff is below. The soil and water there really nourish people. Then she asked, by the way, since you're from the south, you must know the Webb family, right? Xian was well informed and experienced. The moment Charlie mentioned the southern region, her first instinct was to verify whether he was lying. If he was telling the truth, he could potentially be useful. In the event of any unexpected trouble during their journey, he might even serve as a human shield. Hearing her mention the Webb family, Charlie immediately understood that she was testing him. Smiling, he said, who doesn't know the Webb family? The current head is Donald. He has 2 sons, Sean and Kian. That Kian is infamous. I heard he has some disgusting habits and has to eat poop regularly. Truly impressive. Xian laughed. I didn't expect you to know the Webb family's affairs so well. Charlie grinned. Of course. Anyone from the southern region knows about them. Lowering his voice, he added mysteriously, want to hear something even more exciting? Xian nodded. I'm listening. Charlie gestured for her to lean closer. Come nearer, and I'll tell you. Xian frowned slightly and replied coolly, just say it. Charlie pretended to look innocent. How can I say something so secret out loud? If you want to hear it, come closer. If not, forget it. Annoyance surged within Xian. She felt that Charlie was deliberately trying to take advantage of her, mistaking his behavior for clumsy flirting. Chapter 1850. Xian wanted to know how much Charlie actually understood about the explosive situation surrounding the Webb family. Suppressing her disgust, she leaned closer and said coldly, hurry up. Charlie leaned in as well, his warm breath brushing against her ear as he whispered, not long ago, Donald's brother-in-law, Marconi, the boss of the southern region's gang, was killed. His wife was killed too, along with a bunch of beggars. Startled, Xian immediately pulled away and put distance between them. She said coldly, is that it? That was all over short video platforms back then. I want to know, does anyone else know this? Charlie shrugged. I thought you didn't. Xian shot him a disgusted look, convinced that he had deliberately used this information as an excuse to get closer to her. Since he hadn't gained any real advantage, she chose not to confront him further. Nevertheless, this incident subtly lowered her guard toward Charlie. Seeing her fall silent, Charlie leaned closer again and said, hey, beauty, where are you from? I've told you about myself, aren't you going to tell me something in return? Xian replied expressionlessly, just because you told me something doesn't mean I owe you anything. Charlie grinned. Don't be so cold. You're gorgeous, smiling would make you even prettier. Xian rubbed her temples impatiently. Sorry, I just want to rest. With that, she closed her eyes. Charlie didn't give up. So why are you going to Osaka? Traveling or heading back? Xian opened her eyes slightly, frowned, and replied, how do you know I'm not returning to China from Osaka? Charlie sighed. Tokyo won't let you leave. I don't know what's going on with the exit controls there. My family is waiting for me to go home for the new year, so I had no choice but to leave from Osaka. Xian nodded faintly. Maybe I really am overthinking it, she thought. For people returning to China from Tokyo, leaving from Osaka or another nearby airport is completely normal. As her suspicion faded, she lost interest in chatting further and said, all right. I'm going to rest now. Unless something urgent happens, don't disturb me. Charlie suddenly added, by the way, I can tell from your accent, you're from Eastcliff. Xian's expression changed instantly. She frowned and denied it sharply. I'm not from Eastcliff. I'm from Highland Falls. Given Japan's tight exit controls and its scrutiny of foreign tourists, especially those from Eastcliff, Xian was extremely cautious and only identified herself as a Chinese national. Charlie looked surprised. Come on. We're both Chinese. It's fate we met on this plane in Japan. You don't have to hide it from me. Your accent is clearly Eastcliff. People from Highland Falls don't speak like that. Xian felt increasingly annoyed. She was now certain that Charlie posed no threat at all, just a slightly sloppy, mildly lecherous, overly talkative man. That realization made her relax even more. Without responding, she closed her eyes again, determined to rest and completely ignore him. Meanwhile, Charlie quietly sent a WeChat message to Isaac Cameron, instructing him to proceed according to the plan.